subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
What would happen if the two little witches heard this? Draco covered the back of his head, looking aggrieved. I'm not wrong. So many girls like you, of course you were so lucky. Tis. Ian glared at Draco and pretended to hit him again. Seeing this, Draco quickly dodged. Okay, I won't say anything, don't hit me. While the two were playing, the whistle for the start of the game sounded. Ian quickly regained his mind and devoted himself to the game seriously. As a chaser, his only task was to throw the quaffle into the hoop to score points. With his agility and sharp judgment, Ian dodged the blockade of several Gryffindor team members and successfully threw the quaffle into the hoop. Yeah, Slytherin scored. The Slytherin audience burst into cheers. Cassandra stood up excitedly, looking at Ian with admiration in her eyes. Lee Jordan from Gryffindor, as the commentator, was not excited. Oh, Slytherin's Potter scored. Gryffindor's Potter is still looking for the golden snitch. Slytherin, except Potter, is more evil than the other. The tactics are really dirty. Oh, God, they pushed Anna down. Jordan, Professor McGonagall's voice sounded in his ears. You are explaining the game. Watch your attitude. Lee Jordan was very aggrieved. Why was he caught by Professor McGonagall again? The game was still going on, but the Gryffindor team was faintly suppressed by the Slytherin team. Harry was a little anxious. As a seeker, he hadn't even seen the shadow of the golden snitch since the start of the game. At this moment, Harry suddenly caught a glimpse of gold from the corner of his eye. He quickly looked over and saw the golden snitch hiding in the corner behind Ian. Harry was delighted and quickly drove his broomstick to chase Ian. Ian suddenly felt a gust of wind behind him. He subconsciously looked back and saw Harry flying towards him. Ian understood in an instant and immediately called out to Draco. Draco! Golden snitch! Draco heard this and looked towards Ian and saw the snitch hiding behind Ian. He turned around and flew towards Ian without any hesitation. Harry was anxious when he saw this, and he quickly sped up, trying to catch the snitch before Draco. However, Draco was also fast, and he almost came behind Ian at the same time as Harry. It's mine, Harry and Draco said in unison, and stretched out their hands at the same time, trying to catch the snitch. The next second, Harry's broom suddenly swung up and down uncontrollably. Harry, Draco, who was about to catch the snitch, quickly gave up the snitch and grabbed Harry's arm. The shaking of the broom did not stop, and Draco was also shaken. Ian was about to draw out his wand and use a curse to stop on the broom, and its Nimbus 2000 also began to shake. For a moment, the attention of all the audience on the field was focused on the three brooms. Damn Voldemort. Damn Quirrell. In the end-of-term game, I must give the noseless monster a few more hits. Ian thought with gritted teeth. Ian tried to maintain his balance, took out his wand from his arms, pointed it at his broom, and shouted, "Spell stop." His broom instantly returned to normal, but Harry and Draco's brooms were still shaking. Ian quickly cast a spell stop on Harry's broom, and Harry's broom also returned to normal. At the same time, in the audience, a flame from nowhere ignited Snape's wizard robe, causing Professor Quirrell to fall off his seat. At this time, the three people on the field had no time to pay attention to what was happening in the audience, and just continued the game. Hurry up, you two. Find the golden snitch. I don't want this broom to do it to me again. Ian shouted at Harry and Draco while hitting the quaffle into the hole. After what happened just now, Harry didn't dare to act rashly anymore, and could only look for the trace of the golden snitch carefully. Draco also became more cautious, staring at Harry closely, fearing that he would have another accident. Not long after, the two of them found the trace of the golden snitch at the same time, and hurriedly urged the flying broom to chase it. With the experience just now, Harry didn't act rashly this time, but waited patiently for the opportunity. At this moment, the golden snitch suddenly dived and flew towards the ground. Harry and Draco urged the broom at the same time and dived down with the golden snitch. When the golden snitch was about to fall to the ground, Harry suddenly accelerated. He stood directly on the broom and reached out to grab the golden snitch. Just when he was about to catch the golden snitch, the whole person and the broom rolled to the ground. The audience in the stands saw this and exclaimed. Harry covered his chest as if he was going to vomit and retched a few times. The next second, Harry spat out the golden snitch. Looking closely, there was still some saliva on it. Harry Potter caught the golden snitch. Harry Potter, the game is over. Lee Jordan shouted excitedly. In the audience, the Gryffindor students stood up and cheered excitedly. The Slytherin students looked disappointed, and even Cassandra couldn't help but frown. Although Harry caught the golden snitch and got 150 points, Ian Potter scored 3 consecutive quaffles in the end, 10 more points than Gryffindor. So Lee Jordan dragged out his voice, and in the expectant eyes of everyone, he slowly spit out the last few words. Slytherin wins. As soon as Lee Jordan finished speaking, the Slytherin students in the audience cheered. The Gryffindor students looked disappointed, and even the cheers were much quieter. Although Hermione wanted to cheer loudly for Ian, she could only whisper to Ronald, "Let's go celebrate for Ian and Harry later." Seeing that there were all the disappointed Gryffindor classmates around her, Ian also breathed a sigh of relief on the field. He had just scored 3 quaffles to tie the score of catching the golden snitch. Chapter 48, Nicholas Flamel. You mean, Professor Snape wants to kill me and Harry. Ian was still wearing his Quidditch uniform. He sat by the Black Lake and looked at Hermione, who said this in surprise. After the game, Hermione and Ronald found Ian and his friends and told him their previous guesses. Draco didn't believe that his godfather would do that and immediately retorted, "How is it possible? What reason does Professor Snape have to kill them?" "Keep your voice down." Cassandra slapped Draco's head hard and scolded in a low voice. "You idiot. Do you want everyone to know that we are talking about the professor here?" Draco covered the back of his head that was hurt by Cassandra's slap and grumbled aggrievedly. "I know. You are too cruel." "I think what Draco said makes sense. Harry is fine. But what reason does Professor Snape have to harm Ian?" Cassandra reminded them. "Don't forget how worried Professor Snape was about Ian when the troll attacked yesterday." Hermione hesitated after hearing what Cassandra said. She remembered that Professor Snape's anxious look in the bathroom yesterday did not seem to be pretended. "Listen to me, everyone. Snape is not a good person at all. He must want to steal the things guarded by the 3-headed dog." Harry suddenly said. "He was the one who let the troll in at the Halloween dinner." Harry said confidently he wanted to divert everyone's attention so that he could take the opportunity to steal the things hidden under the trapdoor. "Wow." Ian looked at Harry in surprise. He was thinking, when did his cheap brother learn to use his brain? Harry felt guilty at Ian's look and pointed at Hermione. "You went to catch up on your sleep in the morning." This is the result of Hermione's deduction. Ian nodded in understanding. "That's good. It's not that Harry has grown a brain. Otherwise, it will be hard to fool him in the future. This morning, after you left, Snape came to mock Harry." Ronald repeated what happened in the morning. "Absolutely true." Harry nodded quickly. "The 3 of us saw Snape limping, and you didn't notice that his leg was bleeding yesterday. So, you think that Professor Snape wants to kill me and Harry for something unknown?" Ian frowned and looked at the 3 people. "Do you have any other solid evidence? You can't just doubt him because he mocked Harry a few times and walked with a limp because of his injured leg. Of course, Professor Snape doesn't look like a good person." Ian added. "Ian, you are too naive." Harry patted his brother's shoulder helplessly. "You always don't want to think that people are so bad." Ian still had a smile on his face, but he couldn't help laughing in his heart. What a first-class performance. Anyone who saw it would say that he is a good student who respects his teacher and respects his teacher. Even in this situation, he still refuses to doubt his professor. Felixer, for your sake, I have to say a few good words for Professor Snape. We should tell Professor Dumbledore about this." Hermione, who had the strongest sense of justice, suggested, "Since we can't catch Professor Snape, let Professor Dumbledore investigate." Ian mercilessly interrupted Hermione's fantasy. "We don't have solid evidence. Do you think Professor Dumbledore will believe us little brats or a professor?" "I think Ian is right." Cassandra also agreed with Ian's opinion. "Without evidence, it's useless even if we tell Professor Dumbledore." Several young wizards were immediately dejected when they heard this. We have to take a long-term view on this matter. Don't alarm the enemy and slowly look for evidence. Ian said slowly. Anyway, whether it was Professor Snape or not, I'm sure that the troll yesterday must have been deliberately let in by someone. Who could it be? Several people were thinking about the murderer. Hey, Harry, Ian, why are you sitting here? Hagrid, who was passing by, saw the people sitting together and ran over excitedly. I haven't congratulated you yet. Ian, the last 3 quaffles were awesome. And Harry, you caught the golden snitch. Thank you, Hagrid. Ian and Harry said at the same time. By the way, Hagrid, how are the professors investigating the troll? Hermione asked hurriedly. Hagrid's expression suddenly became unnatural, and he stammered, You don't care about this matter? Hermione's eyes lit up. It seems that Hagrid knows something inside. I have something else to do. I'll leave first. Hagrid seemed to realize that he had let the cat out of the bag, and quickly turned and left. Hagrid must know something. Harry said affirmatively. Let's go. Let's follow. Hermione made a prompt decision and quietly followed with a few people. Hagrid walked all the way to the cabin in the Forbidden Forest and didn't notice Ian and his followers during the period. Hagrid went in. Should we go in too? Ronald was eager to follow Hagrid into the cabin. Ronald, go knock on the door. Ian smiled and told Ronald. Okay, Ian. The innocent Ronald didn't realize why Ian asked him to knock on the door. He took 2 steps forward and knocked on the door of Hagrid's hut. Hagrid, are you there? I'm Ronald. The door opened. Hagrid poked his head out and was stunned when he saw Ronald and others outside. Why are you here? Hagrid asked them to enter the room with a surprised expression. It's so cold outside. Come in and sit down. Hagrid, can you tell us about the troll? Ian explained his purpose directly. Hagrid's expression suddenly became unnatural when he heard this. He avoided Ian's eyes and didn't dare to look into his eyes. Don't ask about the troll. Hagrid, you are our friend. Harry also said, if you know anything, you must tell us. Okay. Hagrid couldn't stand the looks of these little guys the most. He sighed. I really can't stand you little guys. Don't tell anyone about the troll. Hagrid poured a glass of juice for everyone. The professors guessed that someone deliberately put the troll into the school. Who? Several people asked in unison. I don't know. Hagrid shook his head. The school is investigating this matter now. Don't tell anyone. Harry quickly told Hagrid, the murderer, that several people guessed. You suspect Professor Snape? Hagrid's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. Why would Professor Snape do such a thing? I believe in Professor Snape's character, Hagrid insisted. Although he doesn't look like a good person, he is definitely not the murderer who let the troll into the school. But we really saw Professor Snape limping, and his leg was bleeding. Harry quickly told Hagrid what he saw. He just wanted to steal the things guarded by the 3-headed dog. So he let the troll into the school to take advantage of the opportunity to achieve his goal. How do you know, Fluffy? Hagrid was very surprised. Ian shook his head. He felt that Hagrid was simply the best guide for Dumbledore to set up a game for Harry to pass levels. Look, just a few words, and the bottom line was revealed. Flew away? That 3-headed monster has a name. Draco said with disgust. It's so ugly, but it still has a name. Hagrid, how do you know the name of that 3-headed dog? Hermione was keenly aware of something wrong. You know it? Right. Hagrid immediately realized that he had let the cat out of the bag, and he hesitated, not knowing how to answer Hermione's question. Flew away? So it's called Flew away. It's really cute. Ian spoke at the right time. Hagrid immediately became excited when he heard Ian praise Flew away for being cute and nodded repeatedly. Yes, Flew away is really cute. I bought him from an Irishman. He was just a cute baby at the time, but later he was borrowed by Dumbledore to guard Nick Flamel, Hermione and Cassandra, Harry and Draco and Ronald. Ian, okay. Ian reasonably suspected that Hagrid grew up drinking truth serum, so he didn't need to ask. He said everything he should and shouldn't say. Nick Flamel? Who is he? Hermione looked puzzled. Is there such a person in the wizarding world? I. Hagrid wanted to bite off his tongue at this moment. Why couldn't he control his mouth? Okay. Hagrid, don't be embarrassed. Ian saw Hagrid's expression and felt funny in his heart, but on the surface he still pretended to be understanding. "Don't worry, we won't tell anyone." Hagrid was relieved when he heard Ian say this. "Ian, you are such a good boy." Hagrid patted Ian's shoulder. "You are much more obedient than Harry and the others." Harry rolled his eyes when he heard this. "Hagrid, I will be angry if you say that." "Haha. As long as you don't tell the secret. You are all good children." Hagrid laughed and sent a few people out of the hut. Hagrid looked around and whispered to the few people, "Okay, no matter what Fluffy is guarding, it is not something you little wizards should worry about. Also, don't doubt Professor Snape. Although he doesn't look like a good person, he will never do such a thing." But Harry wanted to say something else. "Don't say, but believe Hagrid." Ian interrupted Harry. "Let's go." The few people left Hagrid's hut and returned to the castle. Chapter 49, Christmas Eve, Nicholas Flamel. Cassandra racked her brains to think about this person, but she couldn't remember it. "This name is so familiar, but I can't remember who he is. Maybe we should go to the library to check and see if we can find any clues about Nicholas Flamel," Hermione suggested. "If you can't remember, just think about it slowly. Anyway, what we have the most is time." Ian ruffled the hair of the two little witches. "However, a name that can appear at the same time as Dumbledore. I guess he must be a big shot." Draco's eyes lit up. "You're right. Ian, maybe I should write a letter to ask my father. Then you will be banned from participating in this adventure." Harry pouted and said, "Your father will definitely keep you away from such things." These days, Draco has created a big Malfoy image for them, and Harry is not surprised that he will do so. Draco was immediately deflated when he heard this. "You're right, he will definitely do it, so let's find it ourselves. We should go directly to the 4th floor and wait for it. Anyway, we have to find out who is coveting the things under the trapdoor. We just need to hide in the dark and wait for that person to appear and catch him," Ronald said with a clenched fist. "Ronald, when will your IQ be able to match your courage?" Ian sighed. "We don't even know when that person will come. Do we have to wait on the 4th floor all the time?" Ronald immediately wilted. "You're right, I was too impulsive. Anyway, you all should honestly check Nicholas Flamel in the library. Don't think about go to the 4th floor again. Don't think about committing suicide." Ian glared at the 3 wizards who were ready to move. "Especially the 3 of you. Don't take advantage of my absence to kidnap Hermione and Cassandra and violate school rules." "Don't worry, Ian. I will keep an eye on them," Hermione said very obediently. "Me too," Cassandra said unwillingly. Ian nodded with satisfaction. "Very good. I believe you, too." With Hermione and Cassandra watching, the 3 will not cause any big trouble. The following days, several people lived very fulfillingly. The Gryffindor trio was responsible for finding clues about Nicholas Flamel, wanting to know what Fluffy was guarding. The Slytherin trio was relatively relaxed. Although they were also looking for Nicholas Flamel's traces, they were not as persistent as the Gryffindors. Cassandra occasionally dragged Hermione to the library to find information about Nicholas Flamel, but found nothing. After a long time, she didn't care. Anyway, as Ian said, they are just little wizards, and this kind of thing should be left to adults like Dumbledore to worry about. Not to mention Draco. His interest in Nicholas Flamel is not as great as Harry's little green snake, Seraphina. Ian, on the other hand, spent his days in leisure. He would play with the golden eagle Themis, tease little Hermione and Cassandra, occasionally go to the library to read books, learn some new magic, and live a happy life. Time passed quickly, and it was Christmas Eve in a blink of an eye. Because of the Christmas holiday, everyone was packing their luggage and preparing to go home for Christmas. There were only a few people at the long table at night, most of whom chose to stay in Hogwarts. Therefore, Ian and the other 2 also sat on the Gryffindor territory. This is really a violent sport. Hermione frowned as she walked over and looked at Draco and Ronald, who were playing wizard chess. The chess pieces on the chessboard were fighting each other, and every step they took was like a group fight. "Hermione, this is wizard chess." Ronald pressed a chess piece hard, and the chess piece hit Draco's bishop hard, knocking it out of the chessboard. The bishop fell to the ground with a loud thud and rolled to Hermione's feet. Hermione picked up the bishop and looked at the small hole left on it, feeling sorry. Can't wizard chess be played properly? Hermione muttered softly and put the bishop back on the chessboard. This is how wizard chess is played, as you said, Violet. Draco chuckled and pressed down a knight, who waved his sword and rushed towards Ronald's bishop. Hermione rolled her eyes and decided not to watch the violent chess game anymore. Ian, are you staying at Hogwarts for Christmas? Cassandra asked Ian, who was sitting on a chair reading a book. Harry and I are going to stay at Hogwarts. After all, Professor Dumbledore will take us to the Potter family's old house tomorrow. Ian looked up from the book and smiled slightly. Well, to collect some of our family's assets. This is the first Christmas we are not together. Mom and Dad will miss you very much. Hermione looked a little depressed. Ian rubbed Hermione's head and said gently, just this once, Hermione, remember to say hello to Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger for me. No matter how reluctant Hermione was, she understood that Ian was going to do business, so she could only nod. Harry, who was next to her, saw this and patted Hermione's shoulder comfortingly. Don't worry, Hermione. I will take good care of Ian. You don't have to worry. Hermione rolled her eyes when she heard this. Harry, are you sure it's not Ian who takes care of you? Harry was speechless for a moment. He was really stumped by Hermione's question. It seemed that Ian, the younger brother, had always been the one taking care of him. Ian looked at Harry's frustrated look and laughed. Hermione, have you packed your luggage? We're leaving soon, aren't we? I've packed a long time ago. Hermione picked up the small suitcase next to her. I don't have much stuff. I've packed it, and it's only for 3 days. Well, that's good. Ian nodded and looked at Draco and Cassandra. What about you two? We've packed it too. Draco and Cassandra also patted their luggage. Ronald, what about yours? You haven't packed it yet. Ian looked at Ronald, who was still playing wizard chess with Draco, and frowned. You're not going home? The plan has changed. My parents decided to go to Romania to find my brother Charlie. Ronald said while playing chess. He is studying dragons there now. Mom thinks she should go and see him. Anyway, they will leave during Christmas, so it is more convenient for me to stay in school for Christmas. Are you happy? Ian looked at Ronald's excitement and couldn't help but joked. Of course, I don't have to listen to my mother's nagging. Ronald smiled and pressed a chess piece hard. Besides, you two are here to accompany me. Very good. Then you can help Ian and Harry, and then go to the library to look for Nicholas Flamel. Hermione said, to be honest, we have looked at it 100 times and haven't found Nicholas Flamel. Ronald scratched his hair in pain. I feel like I have never worked so hard to read a book in my life. I totally agree. Harry also had a bitter face. He was about to vomit from flipping through books these days, and he really didn't understand how Hermione could use these books that were thicker than his life as bedtime reading. Don't forget, you haven't visited the restricted area yet. Hermione whispered, then gave Ian a look and left with her small box. Ronald swallowed his saliva. Do you think Hermione has become bad after staying with us for so long? I think so too. Harry completely agreed. You two are at least a little self-aware. Ian smiled slightly and patted his clothes. Let's go, Harry, Ronald. Let's go see Hermione off. Okay. Ian and his friends came to the castle gate with their luggage. To be more precise, Ian carried Hermione's box in one hand and Cassandra's box in the other. Take good care of yourself in the next 3 days, and write to me if you have any problems. Ian handed the luggage to Hermione and Cassandra. Yeah, you too, Ian. Hermione hugged Ian and followed Cassandra onto the train. We'll see you after Christmas. Goodbye, Hermione, Cassandra. Ian waved and watched the two figures go away. Ian, we should go back too. Harry couldn't help but say as he watched the train go away. Well, let's go. Ian nodded and took Harry and Ronald to the castle. Chapter 50 Christmas. When Ian and his friends returned to the castle, they found a huge Christmas tree in the castle lobby, which was 12 feet high and hung with golden-colored lights. This is so beautiful. Ronald looked at the huge Christmas tree and couldn't help but sigh. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Harry nodded and stared at the Christmas tree without blinking. Okay, I'm going back to the dormitory. I have to ask Themis to send those gifts as soon as possible. Ian raised his eyes slightly. You two should go back to the dormitory quickly. Curfew is coming soon. Okay, Ian, I wish you a Merry Christmas in advance. Harry and Ronald looked at Ian's back and said in unison, "Okay, Merry Christmas, Harry, Ronald." Ian waved his hand without looking back. After Ian returned to the Slytherin lounge, he began to count the gifts. A ruby necklace for Hermione, an emerald ring for Cassandra, a broom care kit for Harry, a wizard chess set for Ronald. Ian counted them while sketching on a parchment with a quill, and Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger, Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape. Huh. Ian looked at the full of gifts and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Themis, it's a good thing you're here, otherwise I really don't know what to do. The golden eagle Themis stood on the shelf, proudly holding her head high, as if to say, of course, don't you see who I am? Okay, stop being so conceited and go deliver the gifts. Ian scolded with a smile and put all the gifts on Themis' back. Go early and come back early, good girl. Themis rubbed Ian's cheek with her head and then spread her wings and flew out of the window. Ian watched Themis disappear into the sky, then retracted his gaze and returned to the dormitory. The next morning, Ian was woken up by Themis. Themis rubbed Ian's cheek with her head, making a chirp, chirp, chirp sound as if saying, "Get up quickly, lazy guy." Okay, I'll get up. Ian rubbed his eyes and sat up from the bed. Themis saw that Ian woke up, so he flew back to the shelf and stared at Ian with his head tilted. "Next time, can you change to a gentler way of waking up?" Ian complained while putting on his clothes. "My face is about to be rubbed bald by you." Themis called softly, turned her head to the side, and ignored Ian. "Well, you are the boss. You have the final say." Ian looked at Themis's arrogant look and couldn't help laughing. "Have you given out all the gifts?" Themis nodded softly and flew back to Ian's shoulder. "Let's go. Let's see who has given me a gift." Ian patted Themis on the back and took it to the Slytherin lounge. As soon as Ian stepped into the lounge, he saw the Christmas tree full of gifts. Various gift boxes were piled up and looked extremely spectacular. The ring Hermione gave me, the scarf Cassandra gave me, the golden snitch model Harry gave me, the pure gold snake ornament Draco gave me, and Ronald's wizard chess. Ian opened the gifts one by one, and the smile on his face became bigger and bigger. A sweater from my uncle and aunt, a transfiguration note from Professor McGonagall, a spell note from Professor Flitwick, a Felix Felicis material from Professor Sprout, and a Felix Felicis from Professor Snape. Felix Felicis. Ian looked at the small bottle in his hand with a surprised look on his face. Bottles of Felix Felicis. Felix Felicis is an extremely precious potion, and it is in short supply. Professor Snape actually gave him a bottle. He originally thought that after collecting the ingredients, it would be good enough to ask Snape to help him brew a bottle, but he didn't expect Snape to give him a bottle directly. "It seems that my luck will be very good this Christmas." Ian looked at the Felix Felicis in his hand and muttered to himself. Ian carefully put away the Felix Felicis and then looked at the largest gift box. This gift box is much larger than the others, and it is tied with a golden ribbon, which looks extremely delicate. "Merry Christmas. Ian, this is an alchemical necklace for you, which can help you avoid all but the 3 unforgivable black magics. Maybe it can be regarded as compensation." Ian silently read the words on the card and opened the gift box. Ian took out the alchemical necklace and saw an exquisite pendant hanging on the necklace. The pendant was engraved with complicated magic patterns, and a dark green gem was inlaid in the middle, which looked extremely beautiful. "Very beautiful." Ian stroked the alchemical necklace and said softly. He knew that this was Dumbledore's compensation for him, because the invisibility cloak, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, should have been in Harry's hands, right? Although he liked the invisibility cloak more than the alchemical necklace, who made him the youngest son. Iolanthe Peverell was the granddaughter of Ignotus Peverell. Since there was no male heir in her generation, she inherited the invisibility cloak from her grandfather. Later, she married Harwin Potter. According to the tradition of the Peverell family, the possession of the cloak was kept secret, and the cloak was passed down to the eldest son of each generation of the Potter family. The youngest son has no human rights. Ian sighed in his heart. Ian put away the alchemical necklace and planned to find Harry and the others. "Harry, Ronald, Merry Christmas." Ian just walked to the door of the Gryffindor common room and met Harry and Ronald. Ian, Merry Christmas. Harry and Ronald saw Ian and said in unison, "Thank you for your gift. We like it very much." "I like your gifts too." Ian smiled and pointed to the sweater with the letter I on his body. "Ronald, I haven't thanked Aunt Weasley for the sweater she gave me. It's very nice." Ronald blushed. "As long as you like it, it's knitted by my mother herself." "Ian, what gifts did you receive?" Harry asked impatiently. Ian knew from Harry's look that he wanted to know if he had received any relics from James. "I receive a lot. In addition to you guys, there are also gifts from professors, and some people I don't know also gave gifts." Ian shook his head in distress. "Most of them are girls." Ronald was full of envy. "It's good to be handsome. Even girls you don't know take the initiative to give you gifts." Harry nodded in agreement, but he couldn't help asking, "Ian, did you receive any special gifts?" "Special gifts?" Ian was slightly stunned. Then he understood what Harry meant and couldn't help but chuckled. "Are you talking about this?" As he said, Ian took out the alchemical necklace around his neck. "I don't know who gave it to me, but they said it was compensation," Ian said lightly. Harry immediately told him that someone gave him an invisibility cloak. "Wow, cool." Ian looked at Harry wearing the invisibility cloak with envy and cursed in his heart again. The youngest son has no human rights. Why should it be passed down to the eldest son in the family? Harry took off the invisibility cloak and stuffed it into Ian's hand solemnly. "Although that person gave me my father's cloak, I think you should also have the right to use it, Ian." Although Ian was very tempted, he still refused when he thought of Dumbledore's scheming face. Nonsense. He didn't want to be calculated by the old bee all day long. Ian returned the cloak to Harry and said with a strong heartache, "Harry, since the other party gave it to you, it means that he thinks you need the invisibility cloak more than me." But Harry wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Ian. "Well, if I want to use it, I can just ask you directly. Will you not give it to me?" Ian laughed and hit Harry's shoulder. Harry immediately expressed his thoughts. "How could it be?" "Ian, if you want to use it, of course I will give it to you." "That's it." Ian spread his hands. "Don't think too much. Hurry up and pack up. Professor Dumbledore will take us to the old house." Harry immediately put away the invisibility cloak and went to the castle gate with Ian and Ronald. Dumbledore was already waiting there, and when he saw Ian and Ronald coming, he immediately took them to the Potter old house. Chapter 51. Potter's old house. Along the way, Harry seemed very excited and kept asking Dumbledore about the Potters. Dumbledore also answered every question, not only telling Harry a lot about Lily and James and Hogwarts, but also about James and Lily after graduation. Ian listened to Dumbledore's words and couldn't help but sigh in his heart that it was a pity that the old bee didn't become an emotional master. Soon, the three of them arrived at Godric Valley. Godric Valley is a semi-wizard settlement with a small square in the center and a war monument-like building in the center of the square. "Professor Dumbledore, that's..." Harry pointed to the monument with red eyes. Ian looked in the direction of Harry's finger. It was a statue of 4 people. A man with messy hair and glasses, a woman with long hair, beautiful and kind face, and 2 baby boys sitting in their parents' arms. "Those are your parents, James and Lily," Dumbledore said softly. "The 2 baby boys are you and Ian." Harry walked over carefully, gently brushed away the fallen leaves on it, revealing the words engraved under the statue. "The last enemy to be eliminated is death." Ian looked at Harry's tearful face, sighed heavily in his heart, and then thought of Dumbledore, who was still peeping at the side, and his heart was inexplicably shuddered. Damn tears. You are about to fall. Damn eyes. You are about to turn red." A few seconds later, Ian walked to Harry with slightly red eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Harry, death is not the end, but oblivion is." "Ian." Harry wiped a tear and looked at Ian and said, "Because you are here, I don't feel that I am alone. Mom and Dad are gone, but we still have each other." Ian patted Harry's shoulder. "You will never be alone, Harry." For 37, he said that he was the intangible cultural heritage left to Harry by James and Lily. Dumbledore looked at the 2 brothers in front of him, his blue eyes full of love. "Okay, children, James and Lily will be very relieved to see you like this now," Dumbledore said with a smile. "Let's go. we should go to the Potter Mansion." Ian and Harry wiped their tears and immediately followed Dumbledore to the Potter Mansion. Along the way, Dumbledore introduced many scenic spots and interesting things in the wizarding world to the two, and Ian and Harry listened with great interest. Soon, they arrived at the Potter Mansion. Wow, it's so big. Ian looked at the huge manor in front of him in shock. He knew that the Potter family was rich, but he never thought that they would be so rich. Ian sighed silently in his heart and then followed Dumbledore into the manor. The furnishings in the manor were also very luxurious. Ian scolded Voldemort in his heart while visiting. What hard life he had lived before. This is the life of a young master. He should live. That damn Voldemort. He turned him from a young Master Potter into a poor little orphan. Who is it? How dare you trespass into the Potter Manor? Just as Ian was complaining, an angry voice suddenly came. Ian was startled and immediately looked towards the source of the sound, and then saw a house elf standing in front of the gate. The house elf had big ears, a big nose like a bat's wing, protruding eyeballs, pupils as big as tennis balls, and skinny, BCFG, looking like a little monkey. His hands and feet were very long, and his limbs seemed to be out of proportion with his body. Lombard. Dumbledore smiled and looked at the house elf. Lombard, who was originally furious, saw Dumbledore and suddenly widened his eyes. "Oh, Professor Dumbledore, it's you. You." Before Lombard could say a few words, he was attracted by the appearance of Ian and the others, and his tone became more excited. "Master, it's Master Harry. Master Ian." Lombard screamed, and the whole elf became excited. The young masters look exactly like the deceased Master James and Madame Lily. "Oh, God, God, Lombard is going to faint." Ian, Harry, is this the right reaction to seeing the master? Lombas. Dumbledore looked helplessly at the excited house elves and reminded them, "Harry and the others just came back. You scared them." Lombas reacted, hit his two Tybidoo in frustration, and slammed his head hard. Bad Lombas. Bad Lombas. Scared the two young masters. Lombas is not a bad elf. Ian looked at Lombas's headshots, and his mouth twitched slightly. "Excuse me, can you stop?" Ian really didn't have the hobby of watching others abuse themselves. He was not a pervert. When Lombard heard Ian's words, he stopped immediately and looked at Ian carefully. Lombard must listen to Master Ian. "Do you have anything to tell Lombard?" Ian helplessly held his forehead and subconsciously looked at Dumbledore. "Has he always been like this?" "Lombard is very loyal," Dumbledore said with a smile. He was just too excited. "Lombard is the house elf of the Potter family." Dumbledore chuckled. "House elves are very loyal and will serve their masters for generations. If you have anything, you can tell Lombard to do it." At this point, Dumbledore paused and continued. "At the beginning, according to convention, after your parents passed away, Lombard should have been responsible for taking care of your brother's lives. 22:19. Dumbledore sighed. "Your situation was quite dangerous at the beginning, and it was not suitable to live in the Potter old house. So Lombard only needed to be responsible for guarding the manor and taking care of the hygiene here." Ian nodded and understood Dumbledore's arrangement in his heart. After all, Voldemort is still hiding somewhere. If he and Harry had really lived in the old Potter house, they would have been killed by Voldemort's minions. "Master Ian, Master Harry, are you thirsty or hungry? Lombas will prepare food for you," Lombas said excitedly, looking at the two brothers in front of him. Before Ian could answer, Lombas continued to talk on his own. No. Master Ian and Master Harry have just returned, so they must get familiar with the manor first. Lombas will take the two masters to get familiar with the manor first. Then go and prepare food. Stop, Lombas. Ian looked at the excited house elf in front of him and felt his head buzzing. "Can you calm down first?" Lombas closed his mouth immediately after hearing Ian's words and looked at Ian carefully. Ian took a deep breath, looked at Lombas and said, "Harry, and I do need to get familiar with the manor first. But I came here today to know if you are the one maintaining the Potter family's industry." Lombas heard Ian's words. He straightened his chest immediately and said proudly, "Yes, Master Ian. Since Master James passed away, The Potter family's business has always been maintained by Lombard. Lombard has taken good care of the Potter family's business. He has not been lazy at all. Looking at the proud house elf in front of him, Ian raised his eyebrows slightly. It has always been you? How did you do it? You know, the Potter family has a lot of businesses covering various fields. This house elf has been able to maintain it without bankruptcy, which is also a talent. Master Ian, Lombard is only managing these properties according to the plans made by Master James and Madame Lily before their death. Lombard scratched his head and said with a simple smile, Lombard's ancestors have been house elves of the Potter family, serving the Potter family for generations, and they're very familiar with the Potter family's properties. Speaking of this, Lombard seemed to be afraid that Ian would misunderstand that he had embezzled the Potter family's property, and hurriedly said, Master Ian, Lombard is only managing on behalf of the Potter family, and he definitely does not covet a penny from the Potter family. Lombard has been waiting for the two young masters to come home. Lombard was very excited. Now that the two young masters are home, Lombard can also hand over the Potter family's properties to the two young masters. Looking at the loyal house elves in front of him, Ian felt a little complicated. House elves, so loyal and dedicated. Ian looked at Lombard in front of him. His mouth twitched slightly. Lombard, take us to get familiar with the manor first. As for the property, we'll talk about it later. Let's talk about it after the old bee leaves. Ian is not afraid that Dumbledore will covet the Potter family's property. He just simply doesn't want to be stared at by Dumbledore. Ian looked at Dumbledore again. Professor Dumbledore, do you want to come with me? I don't need it. Dumbledore smiled and shook his head. I still need to go back to Hogwarts to deal with some things, so I won't disturb you two brothers. Then, Dumbledore stood up and said to Ian and Harry, I'll leave first. I'll pick you up later. Okay, Professor. Ian nodded. We'll wait for you here tonight. Dumbledore smiled and nodded, then turned and left the Potter old house. Seeing Dumbledore disappear at the door, Ian withdrew his gaze and looked at Lombard. Okay, Lombard, you can take us to get familiar with the manor now. Lombard was immediately happy when he heard Ian's words and took Ian and Harry around the manor. Chapter 52. The Potter family head the old Potter mansion is very big, but Lombard has managed the manor in an orderly manner, not messy at all. Ian listened to Lombard's introduction while looking around and nodded secretly in his heart. This house elf is really good. Look how well he manages the manor. Lombard, are you the only house elf in the family? Ian asked as he walked. Master Ian, in addition to Lombard, the Potter family has 11 other house elves. Lombard answered truthfully, but they were all sent by Lombard to inspect the Potter family's business, so they are not in the manor. Ian smiled and nodded. It seems that you are their boss. Master Ian, Lombard is responsible for managing all the house elves in the Potter family. Lombard scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly. They all listened to Lombard very much. Well, not bad. Ian patted Lombard's shoulder. Do a good job. Master Ian praised Lombard. Lombard was so happy. Lombard said excitedly, It is Lombard's honor to serve the Potter family. Looking at the excited house elf in front of him, Ian couldn't help but feel helpless. This manner was almost familiar, and Ian estimated that the time was almost up, so he said to Lombard, Lombard, take me and Harry to the study. We need to sort out the family business. Yes, Master Ian. Lombard agreed immediately and took Ian and Harry to the study. The study was at the end of the second floor. Ian and Harry followed Lombard into the study and saw that the study was full of books and various filing cabinets. Master Ian, here are all the industry information of the Potter family. Lombard pointed to one of the filing cabinets and said, Lombard has been sorted by industry type. Master Ian and Master Potter can check it at any time. Ian nodded, walked to the filing cabinet, picked up a document, and flipped through it. Seeing this, Harry followed suit and picked up a document to look through it. Rumbus stood quietly aside, waiting for Ian and Harry's instructions. After a long while, Ian put down the document in his hand and turned to look at Rumbus. Rumbus, from now on, you will assist me and Harry in managing the Potter family's business. Is there a problem? Ian looked at Rumbus and said in a serious tone. Rumbus immediately stood up and answered firmly, "No problem. Master Ian, Rumbus will definitely do it." Looking at the determined house elf in front of him, Ian nodded with satisfaction. "But, Master Ian, you and Master Harry are back now, so we need to choose the head of the Potter family." Rumbus looked at Ian and said seriously, "Originally, Master James divided the family property into two, but there are some things that only the head of the family can own." "What are they?" Ian asked curiously. "For example, the title deed of the old Potter house," Lumbus replied, "and some heirlooms of the Potter family and most of the corporate shares." "Oh, only the head of the family can own it." Ian raised his eyebrows slightly. "Then who is the head of the family between me and Harry?" "Master James did not designate the head of the family," Lumbus replied. "So, Base has been keeping the title deed and heirlooms of the Potter house. However, the portrait of the old master is still there, and the old master can designate the head of the family." Lumbus suddenly thought of something and added, "The old master is Master James' father, that is, the grandfather of the two young masters." Ian immediately became interested. "Oh, where is the portrait of the grandfather? Take us to see it." "Master Ian, Master Harry, please follow Lumbus," Lumbus said, and turned and walked out of the study. Ian and Harry looked at each other and followed. Under the leadership of Lumbus, Ian and Harry came to a room on the third floor. Lombard gently pushed the door open, then respectfully stepped aside and made a gesture of invitation to Ian and Harry. "Master Ian, Master Harry, please come in." Ian and Harry walked in and saw many portraits of wizards hanging on the wall in the center of the room. Ian guessed that these were probably the successive heads and wives of the Potter family. "Hello, ancestors." Ian pulled Harry to bow to the portraits, and then introduced himself. "I am Ian Potter. This is my brother Harry Potter. We're the children of James Potter and Lily Potter." After hearing Ian and Harry's self-introduction, the portraits all became agitated. "James' children? They're so big now. These two children have the blood of our Potter family. There is no mistake." The two little guys look a little different. The older one looks like James, and the younger one looks like Lily. The portraits started talking at once, and Ian and Harry were a little annoyed by the noise, but they still stood there obediently, waiting for the portraits to finish talking. After a long time, the portraits quieted down. "Ancestors, Harry and I are here to see our grandfather." Ian looked at the portraits and said respectfully, "Excuse me, where's the portrait of our grandfather?" "I'm your grandfather." Just then, a portrait with a face somewhat similar to James spoke. "I am Flement Potter." Ian and Harry turned their heads to look at the portrait that was speaking and saw a portrait in the corner of the wall. The portrait was of an old wizard with white hair and a serious look. "Hello, grandfather." Ian and Harry immediately bowed to Flement's portrait and shouted respectfully. "Well, good." Flement looked at Ian and Harry in front of him, with a satisfied smile on his face. "James's two children look good. Our Potter family has a successor. Please give flowers." Zero hearing Flement's praise, Ian and Harry smiled. "But since you came to see me, is there something?" Flement looked at Ian and Harry and asked kindly. "Yes, grandfather." Ian nodded and told the reason why he and Harry came to Flement. "Lumbus said that Harry and I need to choose a head of the family and take over the Potter family's business. So we came to ask grandfather to make the decision." "So that's it." Flement nodded slightly and looked at his two grandsons carefully. "Do you two have any ideas?" "Grandfather, I think Ian is more suitable to be a head of the family than me." Harry suddenly said, "Ian is smarter than me, and Ian is more responsible than me." Listening to Harry's words, Ian turned his head and looked at him in surprise. "Harry." Sure enough, the soft-hearted Saint Harry would not compete with his poor brother for the family property. "Ian, listen to me." Harry turned his head to look at Ian and said seriously, "I'm the older brother, and it is my duty to take care of my younger brother, and I really have no interest in managing a business." "But, Harry, you are the eldest son in the family." Ian wanted to refuse again. "Didn't you see that Zhao Kuang-yin, who was wearing the yellow robe, gave up the throne 3 times? He also had to show that he had no interest in the position of the head of the family, and then he could accept it reluctantly." However, before Ian finished speaking, he was interrupted by Fremont. "Okay, Don't refuse each other. I have made up my mind. Listening to Fremont's words, Ian and Harry turned to look at him. I decided that Ian will be the head of the family. Fremont looked at Ian and Harry and said in a serious tone, Ian, I hope you can lead our Potter family to a more glorious future. Yes, grandfather. Ian smiled immediately after hearing this and bowed deeply to Fremont's portrait. I will definitely work hard to do a good job as the head of the family and will not let grandfather and ancestors down. Lombard watched this scene from the side and smiled. The old master has made a decision, so he can rest assured to hand over the Potter family to Master Ian. He knows that Master Ian must be the head of the family. In the process of getting along just now, Lombard clearly felt that between the two brothers, Master Ian, the younger brother, was the dominant one. Whether he was instructing Lombard to do something or facing the portraits of the ancestors of the Potter family, Master Ian was very calm and imposing. And Master Harry was more shy and almost obedient to his younger brother. Although Master Ian was not the eldest son of the family, he was obviously more suitable to be the head of the family than Master Harry in terms of character and ability. Lombard will definitely listen to Master Ian. Lombard thought silently in his heart. Chapter 53. Changing shapes after becoming the head of the family. Ian called Harry and Lombard to the study to prepare to divide the family property. Since Dad has divided the family property into two, he needs to open another vault. Ian said to Harry and Lombard while flipping through the documents. Harry, I will transfer your part into it, and then you can withdraw it freely. Okay. Harry nodded and agreed immediately after hearing this. He didn't think that Ian was dividing the family with him, but Ian was the head of the family now and needed to divide these things clearly. After all, the two brothers could spend their money together regardless of whose money it was. In response, Ian said, I didn't say that. This is the most profitable Ruin Fa potion factory in our family. I want to keep the shares of the factory, and I will convert your part into gold galleons according to the market value and put it into your vault. As he said that, Ian handed a document to Harry. Harry took the document and took a look at it and was shocked by the long list of numbers on it. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, million. Harry looked at Ian in surprise. Our factory is worth so much money. Of course, this is our family's cornucopia. Ian looked at Harry's surprised expression, and Sanjiusin showed a smug smile on his face. It can be said that the hair care industry of Wizard Bay has been monopolized by our family. Harry swallowed his saliva. Doesn't it mean that you can make money by lying down every day? In theory, it's right. Ian nodded. As long as the factory doesn't go bankrupt, you can make money by lying down every day. That's really rich, Harry said in a vague tone, looking at the numbers on the document. Is he a multi-millionaire now? No, a billionaire, because in addition to the factory, Ian also converted all his other properties into gold galleons and added them together. Okay, don't look at it. I will deposit all this money into the vault for you. Ian looked at Harry's appearance and couldn't help but smile. And these properties and collections, I'll think about how to deal with them. Well, I can't give you the family heirlooms, but some collections can, and there are a few properties. Ian pointed to a few properties on the document. I saw that my father bought a villa more than 10 years ago at 13 Grimald Place in London. How about I give that one to you? Harry, Ian asked with a smile. Ian was amazed in his heart. James and Sirius were really close brothers. They even bought a villa next door. He naturally knew that the old house of his and Harry's godfather, Sirius Black, was located at number 12 Grimald Place. Although Harry could not inherit the assets of the Potter family, he thought that Harry would definitely get most of the Black family's property. After all, in the movie, after Sirius died, all the Black family's assets were handed over to Harry according to the will. Harry nodded and agreed immediately after hearing this. Okay, Ian, you can arrange it. He trusted Ian 100%, and he would agree to whatever Ian said. Then let's go. Ian immediately made a decision. I will deal with all these things as soon as possible. Lombas will help Master Ian. Lombas said excitedly. Thank you for your hard work, Lombas. Ian smiled good-naturedly. Lombard almost fainted. Master Ian said to Lombard that he had worked hard. Master Ian is a good man. Lombard will definitely work hard. Do Ian just said one sentence, and this house elf was still so exaggerated. However, Harry also found that Ian seemed to be very good at dealing with this situation, where he was very happy with the gratitude and praise from others. Harry shook his head, put the strange idea behind him, and couldn't wait to put forward his own guess to Ian. Ian, since there are portraits of ancestors and grandfathers, then mom and dad. Harry, I'm sorry. Ian interrupted Harry and sighed. But you have to know that most wizards only ask painters to paint their portraits when they are old, and wizards will continue to instill their own thoughts and memories into their portraits before they die. Harry, that's why the portraits have consciousness and memories, and our parents. Ian paused before saying, it died too early and have been fighting Voldemort, and it takes a certain amount of time to make wizard portraits. So, listening to Ian's words, Harry gradually calmed down, and he lowered his head in disappointment. Yeah, why didn't I think of this, Mom and Dad? Master Ian, Master Harry, Lombard said suddenly. Although Master James and Madame Lily did not leave any portraits, Lombard remembered that Madame Lily liked taking pictures very much. Every holiday, Madame Lily and Master James would take pictures together. Those pictures have been kept by Madame Lily in the bedroom. Do you two want to take a look? Lombard, you are so great. Harry heard this and immediately raised his head excitedly. Take us there. Lombard took the two to the bedroom of the Potters. The environment inside was still well maintained, full of a happy atmosphere. Ian looked at the pictures of James and Lily in the room, some of them in their school days, some after they became adults, and some after they got married. The two people in each photo were full of smiles, which made people feel very happy. Harry looked at these moving pictures, and his eyes couldn't help but turn red. Ian pinched his nose helplessly. Well, he had to act as an emotional master again. Harry looked up at Ian with tears in his eyes. Harry, I know you miss Mom and Dad very much. Ian said softly, but you have to believe that they're always by our side to protect us. Ian, I know Mom and Dad are always protecting me. Harry sniffed. I just miss them very much. Ian said nothing, but patted the shoulder of the 11-year-old wizard silently. They each put away a photo of the Potter couple and then prepared to go to lunch under the leadership of Lombas. Ian was busy with the family property all afternoon at the Potter old house. Harry was much more relaxed, strolling around, looking around, and playing the game console, by the way. Because Lily was born a Muggle, there were naturally some Muggle products in the old house, such as the game console in Harry's hand. Harry, keep your voice down. I'm doing the accounts. Ian threw an apple at Harry. Harry smiled awkwardly. Okay, I got it. Ian ignored him, just buried his head on the desk, and continued to look at the profit report of Ruinfa Potion Factory. 014411212, Falu 153452250. It was not until the evening, when both of them had already eaten dinner, that Dumbledore finally arrived. Is everything done? Dumbledore looked at the two brothers with a smile. If there is nothing else, we will go back to Hogwarts. Of course, Professor Dumbledore. Ian replied immediately. We have done everything. Then let's go. Dumbledore said, motioning the two little guys to hold his hands. We should go back to Hogwarts. Ian and Harry immediately stood up and held the old bee's hand tightly. Dumbledore whispered, it may be a little dizzy when you apparate for the first time. Professor Dumbledore, why didn't we apparate when we came here? Ian asked in confusion. Oh, I think you might be sad on the way here, so I want to give you enough time to adapt. Dumbledore explained. Of course, you can use apparition directly when you go back. Ian, it's outrageous. The old bee's worry is completely unnecessary. Let's not talk about him for now. Just talk about Harry. With the guidance of this emotional master, how can this kid be sad for a long time? But Ian still tactfully didn't say this. Master Ian, Master Harry, Lombard will always guard the Potter old house and wait for the two young masters to come back. Lombard wiped his tears with a handkerchief and waved to the two vigorously. The two also waved Lombard goodbye. The next second, Ian felt a strong force pulling them into the illusion, and Mal also felt dizzy. He seemed to be compressed into a ball, unable to breathe, and seemed to fall from a high altitude, which was terrible. After a suffocating feeling that seemed to last a lifetime, Ian's feet finally touched the ground, and he breathed fresh air again. When Ian opened his eyes again, he saw the familiar castle gate. "Welcome back to Hogwarts, kids," Dumbledore said with a smile. "You still have 2 days off to enjoy." Ian was still trying to maintain his face and nodded with a pale face. He was still recalling the terrible feeling of apparition just now. Harry's condition was even worse, and he retched against the wall. Ian, he decisively moved 2 steps to the side, and his face became even paler. This is how the first apparition works. You will get used to it slowly. Dumbledore took out 2 candies and handed them to the 2 brothers. "Eat a piece of candy. It will be much better." Ian took the candy and thanked him weakly. "Thank you, Professor Dumbledore." Harry couldn't wait to unwrap the candy and put it in his mouth. Suddenly, a refreshing sweetness spread in his mouth, making him feel much better. Ian watched Harry regain his spirits, then slowly unwrapped the candy and threw the candy into his mouth. Well, the candy given by the old bee tastes pretty good. "Okay, kids, I'll leave first," Dumbledore said with a smile. "After 2 days of vacation, you will start classes again." "Okay, Professor Dumbledore." Ian nodded immediately, painting style. Dumbledore smiled and nodded, then turned and left. Chapter 54. The Potter brothers' adventure in the restricted area, watching the old bee's back gradually going away. Ian turned his head and looked at Harry. "Harry, how are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Harry waved his hand. "It's just that the feeling of changing shapes is too uncomfortable." Ian nodded in agreement. Yes, it's too uncomfortable. If he didn't have to maintain his dignity, he would definitely choose to lean against the wall and vomit like Harry. Let's go back to the dormitory first. When it's later, we will go to the restricted area to look for clues about Nicholas Flamel. Ian took a deep breath of the familiar air in the castle and said. Harry nodded and walked towards the castle with Ian. When Ian and Harry returned to the Gryffindor lounge together, Ronald was the only one in the lounge. "You two are finally back. I'm so bored." Ronald's eyes lit up when he saw Ian and Harry. "How is it? Are you all right?" "Of course it's going well." Harry nodded. Professor Dumbledore also took us back to the old house of the Potter family, which is in Godric Valley. "Wow, your house must be very big, Harry," Ronald asked curiously. "I really want to see it with my own eyes." "It's very big, a big manor, and they're house elves." Harry nodded and suddenly teased. "Ian is the head of the family now. If you want to go there to play, you have to ask for the consent of our head of the Potter family." Ronald immediately turned his head to look at Ian and made a nasty request. "Head of the Potter family, Master Potter, can I go to your house to play?" Ian's face darkened. "If you call me like this again, don't even think about going." No, I won't call you anymore." Ronald immediately begged for mercy. "Ian, can I go to the old Potter house to play?" "Yes, but you have to wait until the holiday." Ian agreed readily. "Great." Ronald jumped up excitedly. "I've never been to the manor before." "Okay, don't get excited, Harry, and I still have to go to the restricted area." Ian waved his hand and said, "I'll tell you in detail when I get back." "Okay, then you guys be careful." Ronald nodded immediately. "Don't get caught by Filch." "Don't worry, it won't happen," Harry whispered. "We have the invisibility cloak. We'll be fine." The two chatted with Ronald in the lounge for a while. As soon as curfew came, Ian took Harry to the library in the castle. They were going to look for clues about Nicholas Flamel in the restricted area. Although Ian knew that Nicholas Flamel was the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, he still had to pretend in front of Harry. In the restricted area of the library, it was pitch black, and only 2 night owl wizards were looking for something. "Ian, why don't we take oil lamps?" Harry, hiding under the invisibility cloak, whispered, "It's so dark, how can we see clearly?" Ian's mouth twitched, and he sprayed venom unconsciously. "Harry, what's the wand in your hand for? Can't you cast a fluorescent spell? Has your brain been stepped on by a troll?" As he said, Ian raised his wand and whispered, "Fluorescent flash." The tip of the wand in Ian's hand suddenly emitted a soft light, illuminating the bookshelves around him. "Sorry, Ian, I forgot." Harry smiled awkwardly, raised his wand, and said, "Fluorescent flashing." Suddenly, 2 bright street lights lit up in the restricted book section of the library. With the light, Harry and Ian began to search on the bookshelf. A Guide to Werewolves, Famous Fire Eaters, Demons of the 15th Century, and the 13 Clans of Vampires. Flamel, Flamel. Where's the book about Nicholas Flamel? Harry asked as he searched on the bookshelf. Ian was also searching on a bookshelf, but he did not respond to Harry's words because he saw a book that interested him, a guide to the use of dark magic. This book, Ian muttered to himself, reaching out to take the book off the bookshelf. The next second, a terrifying roar that did not belong to humans came from Harry's direction. Then came the sharp voice of the administrator, Mr. Filch. "Who's there?" Harry did not bother to put the book back to its original position, and hurriedly threw the book to the ground, covered the invisibility cloak, pulled up a hui, and was about to leave. Ian grabbed Harry, put his index finger to his mouth, and made a gesture of silence. For safety, he also cast another disillusionment charm on the two of them. Filch held up an oil lamp. The light flickered, reflecting his old face and the small eyes that flashed with suspicion. "Come out. I've seen you." He looked at the place where Harry and Ian had just made a sound, and then turned his head to look deep into the restricted area. Unfortunately, he was destined to be disappointed. He did not find the invisible Ian and Harry, but only found the screaming book thrown on the ground. Ian and the other person hid under the invisibility cloak and tiptoed out of the library, trying not to make any sound. As soon as the two came out of the library, they heard Quirrell's stuttering voice and Snape's cold voice as soon as they turned a corner. Harry was almost scared to scream, but fortunately Ian was quick and covered his mouth. "Don't treat me as your enemy." "Quirrell, why are you looking for me?" Quirrell's voice stuttered even more. "You know it well, don't you, Quirrell?" Snape said coldly. He was about to say something, but suddenly he noticed something and looked behind him. Harry was so nervous that he couldn't breathe. Ian could only take Harry and take small steps back, cursing in his heart. Snape must have a surveillance camera installed in his head. The invisibility cloak plus the disillusionment spell can detect them. It's too much. The two of them moved back carefully. Snape had already let go of Killu. He reached out in the direction of Ian and Harry, but didn't catch anything. But he still became suspicious. "We'll talk about it another day, Quirrell." Snape stared at Quirrell sinisterly. "When you've decided who to be loyal to, we'll talk about it again." Ian heard this and subconsciously looked at Harry's face. Sure enough, his face caught the excitement of a bad guy. But this can't be blamed on Harry. Who made Snape say these specious words? Isn't this rushing to make others suspect him? Ian was complaining when Filch hurried over from the restricted book area. "Good evening. 2 professors. Look at this. I just found it." Filch excitedly showed the book to the two of them. "There must be a little wizard who got off the car secretly." Snape stared at the book in Filch's hand with a gloomy face, and the three of them immediately took action separately. Ian and Harry also took advantage of this time to open the door behind them and hide in. Chapter 55. The Mirror of Ariste. Harry panted, his face pale. "It's so scary, Ian. We were almost discovered." "Yeah." Ian was also a little scared. "We were so careful, but Professor Snape seemed to have 2 eyes on his back." Harry nodded and looked around. "Where is this?" "I don't know." Ian walked in again. "It looks like a utility room." "Bullshit utility room. This is the little test of the Mirror of Ariste that the old be carefully arranged for you." Ian complained in his heart, and he walked to the Mirror of Ariste according to the script set by Dumbledore. The mirror is very impressive, reaching the ceiling, with a golden frame and 2 claw-shaped feet underneath. The top is also engraved with Eris Stella Erluate Ubi Kafru Adon Vois. "Harry, come and see. There is a mirror here." Ian quickly called Harry over. Harry trotted over, looking at the mirror with curiosity, and the next moment his eyes widened in surprise. "Mom and Dad." "Ian." Harry looked at the scene in the mirror and couldn't help but take a step forward. James and Lily in the mirror also waved to him with a smile, and Ian stood next to his parents and made faces at Harry. Harry was surprised and happy, and couldn't help but want to get closer and take a closer look. But after taking a few steps, he found something wrong. The parents and brother in the mirror had been standing in the same place, and did not get closer because of his approach. Harry was stunned. He turned his head to look at Ian. "What's going on?" Ian did not answer his question, but looked at the mirror with a complicated expression. Ian, don't you see Mom and Dad? And can't you see it? Harry eagerly grabbed Ian's arm. Can't you see us in the mirror? Ian opened his mouth and was about to say something when he heard his system that existed at that time speak. Beep. Someone is using legilimency on the host. Beep. The illusion that the host is seeing the mirror of Ariste has been automatically created. Ian's face darkened. He knew it. There was no need to think too much. He guessed that the old bee was hiding in a dark corner, secretly staring at him and Harry. Damn, wouldn't it be sty if you peek into a child's inner world? I saw it, Harry. Ian took a few steps forward, as if he was confused by the scene in the mirror, with a look of joy on his face. It was a Christmas party. I saw Mom and Dad, and you Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger were there, and Hermione and Cassandra, but I don't know why they were holding their children next to me. Hermione and Cassandra. Harry looked at Ian in shock, but shook his head and shook off this innocuous little thing. Ian, this mirror. I don't know what's going on. Ian touched the edge of the mirror. We all saw our parents and each other, but they were not the same. Harry grabbed Ian's hand and was about to leave. Let's call Ronald to see what he can see. Hey! Before Ian could say anything, Harry put an invisible cloak on him and pulled him out of the room. Ian sighed helplessly. Forget it. Let him be. Harry will not give up until he hits the wall. Ronald was indulging in a dream and was pulled up by Harry and Ian one by one. What's wrong? Ronald rubbed his eyes and yawned. It's so late. Why don't you go to bed? Get up, Ronald. Hurry up. We'll take you to see something good. Harry urged. Ronald was pulled by the two men in confusion and trotted back to the room. What is this? Ronald stood in front of the mirror of Ariste and scratched his head in confusion. Mirror? You two took me to look at the mirror in the middle of the night. This is not an ordinary mirror, Ronald. Harry pushed Ronald in front of the mirror. Look, what can you see? Ronald looked at the mirror in a daze, and his eyes widened the next moment. I became the president of the male student union. I am also the captain of the Quidditch team. I hold the Quidditch cup. I am also the prefect. Ronald looked at himself in the mirror and couldn't help screaming. Oh my God, I am so awesome. Ronald stared at himself in the mirror blankly and couldn't help touching the badge on his chest that didn't exist. Ian, Harry, this mirror. Ronald looked at Harry and Ian in confusion. Can this mirror show the future? Harry was disappointed when he heard this and forced a smile. How was it possible? Our parents died a long time ago. Ian didn't say anything, but just looked at the mirror silently. The mirror reflected his true heart. He sat on the silver-green throne, with countless wizards submitting at his feet, and next to the throne his family and friends. Ian looked at himself in the mirror and couldn't help but despise himself in his heart. Look, what's in your mind? Power, status? Is that what you want? Do you really want those? Yes, he wants to. Ian looked into his own eyes, and he knew his ambition and desire deep in his heart. Since that night, Harry would drag Ian to see the mirror of Ariste every night. Ian sat in front of the mirror with a nostalgic and sad expression on his face, and he was about to curse in his heart. Enough. It's really enough. 3 days. It's been 3 days. Do you know how he spent these 3 days? Every night, the system would make up the illusion that he longed for his family and friends, and he had to pretend to be a pitiful little boy who missed his parents. He couldn't even get 8 hours of sleep. Ian sighed, watching Harry looking at his parents in the mirror obsessively, and sighed helplessly in his heart. Even now that he has his younger brother, he can't satisfy Harry's inner desire for parental love. I guess Dumbledore should come out. So Ian simply stood up and walked slowly to the opposite side of Harry. Harry, we shouldn't come again. Ian looked at Harry with a serious expression. It's meaningless for us to indulge in illusions like this. Harry retracted his gaze from the mirror and looked at Ian. Ian, but this is the closest time for me to my parents. Harry, you have to understand that it's not real at all. Ian interrupted Harry. It's just an illusion. It's not the real parents. We can't live on illusions all our lives. Harry, I admit that the world in the mirror is happy, but this mirror brings us false happiness. It will make us indulge in illusions. Well said, Ian. It seems you are very insightful. Dumbledore walked out of the shadows with a kind smile on his face. Professor Dumbledore? Harry and Ian hurriedly saluted. It seems that you have discovered the function of the mirror of Ariste, which is good. Dumbledore said, Harry, you have discovered the fun of the mirror of Ariste, just like those people before. Ian rolled his eyes inwardly, but did not show it on his face. He just stood quietly aside and continued to fool Harry with Dumbledore. I'll give you a hint. The happiest person in the world sees himself when he looks into this mirror. Dumbledore said meaningfully, Children, the truest happiness is self-satisfaction. Ian sneered inwardly after hearing this. This statement can only deceive young wizards who are not yet adults. If happiness does not rely on comparison, how can it be felt? If everyone in the world can achieve their desires, who will feel happy? Professor Dumbledore, does this mirror reflect our desires? Ian turned his eyes to Dumbledore. Dumbledore smiled. Yes and no. The mirror reflects what we are most eager and most desired in our hearts. Just like you and Harry, you have never seen your parents and you long for family affection. So now you see James and the others standing by your side. Ian, and you are obviously more greedy than Harry. Dumbledore said teasingly. You like Miss Granger and Miss Wally, but you don't know how to balance their relationship, so you can see them standing harmoniously with you in the mirror, right? Ian's face flushed when he heard this, and he stammered to explain. No, Professor, it was just an accident. Dumbledore smiled and patted Ian on the shoulder. Ian, you have to remember that human desires are endless. This mirror does not give us knowledge or truth. Too many people waste time in front of the mirror and even go crazy because of it. I will find someone to move this mirror away, and you don't have to come again. Dumbledore looked at Harry and Ian. It's getting late. You should go back to bed. Professor Dumbledore, what did you see in the mirror? Harry asked before leaving. Okay, me? I saw myself holding a pair of thick wool socks. Dumbledore said. His expression had a trace of unspeakable pain. Harry and Ian were stunned for a moment, their faces full of surprise. You never have enough socks, do you? Dumbledore sighed. Harry nodded ignorantly. So that's how it is. Ian was not as naive as Harry. He clearly understood that Dumbledore was perfunctorily dealing with them. The Obi definitely did not see any woolen socks. You know, in the UK, woolen socks represent family affection. In fact, Ian was not wrong. Dumbledore saw in the mirror that his family was still alive. His father Percival, mother Kendra, and sister Ariana were all back with him, and Aberforth Dumbledore also recognized his pregnancy again. And Grindelwald. I've always hoped that someone would give me a pair of thick woolen socks. Dumbledore looked away from the mirror. Hearing this, Ian wrinkled his nose in annoyance. Professor Dumbledore, I will definitely give you woolen socks next Christmas. In fact, the candy you gave me this year is also very good and delicious. Dumbledore smiled kindly and then said, Okay, kids, we should go back. With that, Dumbledore took Harry and Ian out of the room where the magic mirror was placed. Chapter 56, Dragon Egg. The next morning, Ian was woken up by Draco. Draco? You're back. Ian looked at Draco in front of him with sleepy eyes and yawned. You're back early. You don't have classes in the afternoon. Hermione asked me to wake you up. It's a meeting. Draco shrugged. Meeting? What meeting? Ian asked in confusion while getting dressed. Regarding Nicholas Flamel, Hermione said she found clues about him. Draco said, Hermione found clues? Ian paused, and a proper surprise flashed across his face. Draco nodded. Yes, Hermione said so. She asked us to go to the library to find her. Okay, I got it. Ian nodded. You go first, I'll be there soon. After Draco left, Ian dressed very quickly, washed up quickly, and went straight to the library. At this time, Harry and others were sitting in the corner of the library, staring at Hermione. Hermione slammed a big, thick book on the table and said very quickly, It's my fault that you went in the wrong direction. Why is my brain so stupid? A few weeks ago, I borrowed this book for entertainment. Hermione said while flipping through the book. It contains an introduction about Nicholas Flamel. 747-inch, you call it entertainment? Ronald looked at the big, thick book in front of him with horror. Hermione glanced at Ronald coldly and continued to read. Nicholas Flamel, the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. What is the Philosopher's Stone? Harry and the other two asked at the same time. Ian's mouth twitched. Let's not talk about Draco who fished for 3 days and slacked off for 2 days. Just say that Harry and the other two idiots worked hard for a long time, and in the end, Hermione was the one who helped. The Gryffindor trio is really the future Minister of Magic and her 2 flaws. Come on, don't you 3 read books? Hermione rolled her eyes. The Philosopher's Stone, also known as the Philosopher's Stone, is a magical substance with amazing functions. It can turn any metal into pure gold and can also create an elixir of life, allowing people who drink this medicine to never die. Forever immortal, Ronald murmured, with an incredible expression on his face. There is such a thing in the world. Ian pressed his hand and motioned Hermione to continue. Don't interrupt Hermione. Hermione looked at Ian with satisfaction and then said, Today, the only remaining Philosopher's Stone belongs to the famous French alchemist Nicholas Flamel. Last year, he celebrated and spent his 665th birthday. He lived a long time. Draco smacked his lips. More than 600 years old. He existed in the 14th century. Cassandra nodded thoughtfully at the table. Since Nicholas Flamel is the only maker of the Philosopher's Stone, if he and Professor Dumbledore really have any connection, then the Philosopher's Stone is likely to be in Hogwarts. That's right. Hermione looked at Cassandra with appreciation. I guess that's what Fluffy is guarding. It's the only remaining Philosopher's Stone. Then we'll go find Hagrid tonight. Harry stood up excitedly. We will definitely be able to catch Snape this time. Silence. Madame Pants, the librarian, came over and glared at Harry. Mr. Potter, if you make so much noise again, please get out. In the library, everyone's eyes were on Harry, and Harry sat down awkwardly and smiled awkwardly. Ian and the others looked at each other, all lowered their heads to read books, and became quails from the bottom of their hearts. Oh, this book is really good. At the appointed time in the evening, Ian took Draco and Cassandra to the appointed place. I say, with 6 of us, won't we be too conspicuous? Cassandra wrinkled her nose. Don't say anything. I'll cast a disillusionment spell on you. Ian took out his wand and waved it at everyone. That's it, don't worry. Don't say anything, or I'll have to do again. A group of 6 people sneaked to Hagrid's hut. Ian cast a disillusionment spell on everyone, and their bodies all turned transparent. In the dark night, no one could find them. Dong, dong, dong. Harry went forward and knocked on the door, and Hagrid's voice came from inside. Who is it? It's us, BCBB, Hagrid. Harry shouted hurriedly. Harry? Ian? Why are you here? Hagrid opened the door and looked at Ian and others in front of him in confusion. Sorry, don't blame me for being rude, but I don't have time to play with you today. Hagrid said, and was about to close the door. We know about the Philosopher's Stone. Several people said in unison. Brother High paused, looking at the little wizards with an expression of seeing a ghost. What are you doing? Hagrid waved his hand. Forget it, come in first. The 6 people entered one after another. Hagrid, Snape wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Harry said as he took off his outer robe. It's been so long. Why are you still suspicious of Snape? Hagrid seemed helpless. What on earth made you suspicious of him? Snape wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, but we don't know why. Harry still insisted on his point of view. Hagrid didn't believe it at all and waved his hand. It's impossible. Professor Snape is one of the professors responsible for guarding the Philosopher's Stone. He can't steal the Philosopher's Stone. What? Several people exclaimed. Hagrid saw the reactions of several people and realized that he had said the wrong thing again and couldn't help knocking on the door. Ian looked at Hagrid and suddenly thought of an interesting thing. If Lily and James had chosen Hagrid as the secret keeper, Voldemort might not have had to go to the trouble of looking for the child at the end of July, and Hagrid himself would have accidentally revealed the existence of him and Harry. He said that Hagrid must have grown up drinking truth serum. These things are not for you little wizards. Hagrid was so angry that his face turned red because he always let the cat out of the bag. He is a professor. Snape would not steal the Philosopher's Stone. That doesn't rule out the possibility that he stole the stone. Harry, the stubborn man, still refused to give in. Ian stroked Yaya's head and watched the show silently. Yaya is a big black dog raised by Hagrid, who looks mighty and domineering. But unlike its deceptive appearance, Yaya is very clingy. Look, after being stroked twice by Ian, he turned around and licked Ronald's face. Hagrid, Hermione's eyes lit up. You said one of the professors. Clever Hermione caught the key words in Hagrid's words, so there are other professors who are also involved in protecting the Philosopher's Stone. What other methods are there, such as spells, magic, etc.? I think it's unnecessary. No one could get past Fluffy. Hagrid seemed very proud of the three-headed dog, except for me and Dumbledore. No one knows that through Fluffy B. Hermione was very good at grasping the problem and immediately asked back, "You and Dumbledore?" Hagrid's face froze, turned his back, and muttered in a low voice, "I shouldn't tell them. I shouldn't tell them." At this time, the iron pot that was being heated in the fireplace suddenly made a sound, and Hagrid immediately walked to the iron pot in surprise. Okay. Hagrid happily took out the things inside. An egg was taken out of the pot by Hagrid. His cautious appearance made several little wizards curious. Chapter 57 Norwegian Ridgeback Norbert Ian and his friends followed Hagrid to the table, staring at the egg with patterns on it. "Hagrid, what is this?" Harry asked curiously. "I know what this is. It's a dragon egg." Draco looked excited, as if he had seen some rare treasure. Dragon egg. Hearing this, they came closer. Yeah, 99% rare. Dragons are magical creatures with a 5-star danger rating. They are usually strictly controlled by the Ministry of Magic, so there is no chance of close contact. This is also a Norwegian Ridgeback. Draco carefully observed the pattern of the dragon egg, and his eyes became even hotter. Hearing this, Hagrid patted Draco on the shoulder with appreciation. "Not bad. Malfoy boy, you have good taste." Draco almost stumbled and fell to the ground after being patted by Hagrid's strong arm. Fortunately, Harry was quick to support Draco. Ahem, Draco coughed awkwardly twice and immediately changed the subject. "Hagrid, where did this dragon egg come from?" "I want it. From a stranger." Hagrid scratched his head in confusion when he said this. "I don't know why I feel like he has to lose to me." Ian rolled his eyes. Hagrid really doesn't even understand. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. But Voldemort really spent a lot of money to fool Hagrid and find out how to get through Lu Wei. You know, dragon eggs are rare items. A dragon egg can be sold for at least 5,000 galleons on the black market. "Hagrid, are you going to hatch the dragon egg?" Ronald asked curiously. "Of course." Speaking of this, Hagrid's full beard couldn't hide his smug smile. "This is a Norwegian Ridgeback dragon. When I hatch it, you will see a legendary dragon with your own eyes." Ian curled his lips. Hagrid was too naive. Why didn't he think about it? It takes more than 10 years for a dragon to grow. Can he raise a dragon in school for more than 10 years? Even if Dumbledore agreed, those parents would not agree. With a click, everyone's attention was attracted to the dragon egg. A small hole was broken from the inside of the eggshell, and something poked out from it. Everyone looked at the small hole nervously, and Ian was no exception. It was also the first time for him to see a dragon up close, even though it was a Western dragon. A black sharp horn poked out of the eggshell, looking fragile and cute. "It's coming out." Draco clenched his fists excitedly. The crackling sound continued to ring, and the crack in the eggshell became larger and larger, and everyone saw the little guy inside. A black dragon that looked like a small lizard poked its head out from inside. Its eyes were not open yet, and it looked stupid and dumb. The dragon staggered a few times and called out to Hagrid a few times. "Oh, look at this little guy." Hagrid's eyes seemed full of maternal kindness. "It thinks I'm its mother, good boy." The 6 people immediately looked at Hagrid with a strange look on their faces. Mother?" Ian looked at this 4-legged lizard with wings with an indescribable expression. Merlin's big socks. "This thing looks really... I don't know if he can see the dragon of China in this life. That is the real dragon with majestic power, although Ian doesn't like it. Hagrid likes his little dragon very much, and immediately took out the raw meat and small fish that he had prepared long ago from his pocket to feed it. The little dragon cub smelled the smell of the small fish and immediately opened his mouth, revealing his tiny fangs in his mouth, and swallowed the small fish in one gulp. It's eating fish. Ronald stared blankly at the dragon cub in Hagrid's hand. Hagrid reached out and touched the little dragon. Yes, it's not like Fluffy. Fluffy only likes to eat lamb chops, but Norbert can eat anything. Norbert? Hermione asked doubtfully. Yes, I have named it Norbert. Hagrid looked at the little dragon cub in his hand lovingly. It must have a name, right? After eating the fish, the little dragon coughed twice, which scared Hagrid to think that it was stuck by a fishbone. So he quickly held it in his palm and checked it carefully. The next second, a ball of fire shot out of the little dragon's mouth and went straight to Hagrid's beard. It still needs more training. Hagrid said happily. Hagrid, you have to be careful. The Norwegian Ridgeback not only breathes fire, but also has fangs which are highly poisonous. Draco kindly reminded. Ronald looked Draco up and down. How would you know so much? Draco immediately raised his chin and said arrogantly, My family has shares in the Romanian dragon farm. Hagrid saw that Draco seemed to know a lot about dragons and immediately chatted with him. Ian looked at the two of them, talking happily, and raised his eyebrows. He remembered that some days ago, Hagrid was quite prejudiced against Draco, the child of the Malfoy family. But now that they have a common interest, they are chatting so happily. Ask for flowers, is this the power of like-minded people? You like dragons, I like dragons too, and we're good friends? Ian couldn't understand, but Ian expressed respect. Hagrid, how are you going to raise it? You can't raise a dragon in school, can you? Hermione frowned and looked at the little dragon. Cassandra also said, Yes, Hagrid, you should know that the school does not allow you to raise such a dangerous magical creature. Nobel can live with me and won't show up at school. Hagrid said quickly, Hagrid, dragons grow very fast. In a few days, your house won't be able to accommodate it. Ian mercilessly broke Hagrid's fantasy. Then, Hagrid looked outside hesitantly. I can put Norbert in the Forbidden Forest. Ian's mouth twitched. He really wanted to ask Hagrid on behalf of the natives in the Forbidden Forest what the hatred was. First, the eight-eyed giant spider with super reproductive ability came to the Forbidden Forest, and then a Norwegian Ridgeback that could breathe fire. This Forbidden Forest has completely become Hagrid's breeding ground. Okay? Does he want to eliminate all the animals in the Forbidden Forest? This is impossible. Hagrid, how can a dragon live in the Forbidden Forest? What about other animals? Ian asked back, and it will definitely be discovered. What should I do? Hagrid was about to cry. Nobel baby, I can't let it leave me. When they saw Hagrid's expression, they couldn't bear to say anything and could only rack their brains to find a solution for Hagrid. How about we send Norbert to the dragon farm in Romania? Draco suggested. Our family has shares there. We can ask them to take good care of Norbert. Hagrid looked at Draco hesitantly. Is it okay? Will baby Norbert like the environment there? Yes. Ronald also said quickly. Hagrid, my brother Charlie also works in the dragon farm in Romania. They will definitely treat Norbert well. But Hagrid still looked a little reluctant. Hagrid, you don't want to see Norbert being disposed of by the school, do you? Ian looked at Hagrid. I think you should know how dangerous a dragon is to the school. Hagrid was silent for a long time, then nodded slowly. Okay, then send Norbert to the dragon farm in Romania, with Ronald's brother Charlie around, and Draco's family also having shares in the dragon farm. Norbert will live a good life and will be treated well. Chapter 58, Sending Norbert Away. Getting caught, Draco patted his chest and promised Hagrid, Don't worry, Hagrid, Norbert will live well. Ronald also hurriedly said, Yes, I promise too. Thank you, Draco, Ronald. Hagrid looked at the two of them with gratitude and wiped his tears with his big hands. You must let the dragon farm take good care of Norbert. Ian watched this entrustment from the side. His heart was calm, and he even wanted to yawn. Cassandra quietly pulled Ian's sleeve and whispered, I remember that our original purpose was not to see the dragon. Didn't we say we were going to ask about the Philosopher's Stone? What's going on now? Yeah, I almost forgot the original purpose of our coming here. Hermione also whispered. Ian hooked the little fingers of the two little witches. Hagrid won't say too much. Let's stop here today. I'll come back to ask another day. As soon as Ian finished speaking, the three people over there decided with Hagrid on the time to send Norbert away. Then let's meet in the astronomy tower 2 days later that night. Draco said, I will write to my father and ask him to send a professional. I will also write to my brother, 280. Ronald also said so. No problem. I will put Norbert in the box, and we will send him away together. Hagrid said. His eyes were red again. Ronald and Draco both reached out and patted the half-blood giant. Don't worry, Hagrid, Norbert will live well. Oh, my little Norbert. He is still so young, Ian. This scene of separation of life and death really made him unbearable to watch. After agreeing on the time to send Norbert away, several people left Hagrid's hut together. Ian walked in front with a little witch in each hand. Ian, why didn't you let me continue asking? Hermione looked at Ian in confusion. Aren't we finished asking yet? Hagrid won't say too much. Ian shrugged. We can't get any more answers if we continue asking. That's right. Hagrid's loyalty to Dumbledore is simply blind. Cassandra said, if Professor Snape really wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, even if we put the evidence in front of him, he won't believe that Professor Snape, whom Professor Dumbledore trusts, is a bad guy. Cassandra is right. That's the truth. Ian squeezed Cassandra's hand. So, we have to think about this matter carefully. But Hermione wanted to say something else. Don't worry, little Hermione. Ian smiled and pinched Hermione's little face. I know about this matter. Ian said so. So Hermione naturally wouldn't say anything more. Hermione, don't worry about the Philosopher's Stone for now. The most important thing for us now is to send Norbert away. Draco raised his eyebrows and said, I have written a letter to my father. He will send someone over in 2 nights. Yes, I have to write a letter to my brother as well, Ronald echoed. Ian looked at the excitement of the two, and his mouth twitched. He really didn't understand dragon lovers. What was there to like about a dragon that could spit fire and burn them to death at any time? In the next 2 days, several people were preparing to send Norbert away. On Saturday night, the 6 people gathered in the astronomy tower as agreed. Why hasn't Hagrid come yet? Harry said, looking around. Don't worry, Harry. It's just the agreed time. Ian glanced at the time and comforted him. As soon as Ian finished speaking, a figure emerged from the stairs. I'm here. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Hagrid said, putting a heavy large crate on the ground. Norbert, my poor baby Norbert, you are leaving soon. Hagrid, stop crying. Ian felt a headache. Norbert is going to the dragon farm to live a good life. You should be happy for him. Yes, Hagrid. Ian is right. Draco also hurriedly agreed. Norbert has gone to the dragon farm. Someone will take care of him. He will live well. I know, but I just can't help crying. Hagrid sobbed. Okay, Hagrid, stop crying. Let's send Norbert away quickly. Ronald also advised. Hagrid heard this, wiped his tears, and opened the big box. Norbert had grown very big, almost filling the whole box. It was curled up in a box, and when it saw Hagrid, Norbert immediately raised his head and rubbed Hagrid's hand affectionately with his head. Hagrid prepared a lot of raw meat and small fish for Norbert to ensure that he had enough food on the way, and also put his favorite blanket in the crate. Hagrid was reluctant to be intimate with Norbert for a long time before closing the lid of the box. Draco looked at the time and urged, Let's go. Let's send Norbert to the top of the tower, and the 2 people we found will take him away. Okay. Hagrid walked in front, holding the large crate. Ian and the others followed Hagrid and walked towards the top of the tower. The process of sending Norbert away was smoother than they had imagined. When Draco and Ronald carried the crate to the top of the astronomy tower, the people who were waiting there had already arrived. Master Malfoy, the people Lucius ordered, spoke to Draco respectfully. Draco looked at everyone with a smug look on his face. Ian couldn't stand his pretentious look, so he reached out and hit him on the back of his head. Pretending to be pretentious? He wouldn't allow anyone to be pretentious than him. Draco covered the back of his head and looked at Ian with an accusing look. Poochie. There was a clear laugh from the people who came to meet. Everyone looked over and saw a man with red hair and freckles on his face. Hi, everyone. Charlie Weasley smiled and greeted everyone. Charlie. Ronald saw his brother and immediately waved excitedly. Charlie responded to Ronald with a smile, then walked forward and patted the crate. Is this Norbert? Don't worry, Hagrid, we'll take good care of it. As Charlie said this, he took out his wand and cast a light spell on the crate, and the heavy box immediately became light. "Then I'll leave it to you, Charlie," Hagrid said with red eyes. Charlie smiled, said hello to everyone, and left with Norbert. Watching Charlie and others disappear in the night, Hagrid couldn't help wiping tears again. "Okay, Hagrid, don't cry." Ian patted Hagrid's shoulder. "Let's go back too." Hagrid heard this, sniffed, and nodded. Ian and others accompanied Hagrid down the astronomy tower, sent him back to the cabin, and then turned and left. Finally, Norbert is gone. Draco stretched. "We can also breathe a sigh of relief." "Yes," Ronald also echoed. "I hope Norbert can live happily in his new home." As the group walked, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in front of them. "It's over." Ian decisively pulled the two little witches back and let the other three stand in front of them. Professor McGonagall looked at the six people with a dark face. "Can anyone tell me why you are here? Don't tell me you are here to see the stars." Ian and the others looked at each other, but no one spoke. They couldn't tell Professor McGonagall that Hagrid secretly raised a dragon and sent it away in the dark, could they? "What? Are you all mute?" Professor McGonagall's face became even uglier. "If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, you will be put in detention tomorrow." "Professor, we have nothing to do with dragons." Ronald blurted out his words in a hurry. Ian and Draco and Harry. "No, buddy. You. What dragon?" "Ronald, are you talking about Draco again?" Ian's mind turned, and he pulled Draco over. "Hey, little dragon, Ronald said he has nothing to do with you." Draco was also smart. He reacted immediately, pretending to be calm, and snorted. "Ian, I have nothing to do with Weasley." "That's right. I have nothing to do with Malfoy." Ronald also nodded quickly, fearing that Professor McGonagall would not believe it. "Professor McGonagall, what are you talking about? What dragon? What has nothing to do with it?" Professor McGonagall frowned. "I just asked why you are here. What are you hiding?" Harry's eyes were erratic. "Professor McGonagall, we are just here to watch the stars. We are not hiding anything." "I don't care what you are doing. Night wandering is a serious violation of discipline." Professor McGonagall looked at the few people sternly. "You six, each of you will be deducted 5 points." "What?" The 6 people immediately cried. Ian was even more distressed. He worked hard to add points to Slytherin. He, Cassandra, Draco, Slytherin will be deducted a total of 150 points. But fortunately, Gryffindor also has 150 points. Thinking of that, Ian's mood instantly improved a lot. "Not only that, you 6 follow Hagrid to patrol the forbidden area tomorrow," Professor McGonagall added. Another wailing sound. Professor McGonagall looked at the 6 people with a serious face. "I hope you can learn a lesson from this incident." Professor McGonagall glanced at the 6 people coldly, then turned and left. Chapter 59. The isolated Gryffindor trio until Professor McGonagall disappeared. Ian and the other 6 finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hermione fell into Ian's arms and said sadly, "I have never lost points since I was a child." "Ian, I was deducted 50 points this time." Cassandra narrowed her eyes and looked at Hermione where Ian couldn't see. The little witch smiled. "Damn, Granger is really good at acting. It doesn't matter, it's just points. You can earn them back if you lose them." Ian comforted softly. Hermione muffled, and didn't say anything else. "Hermione, you are fine. Why don't you look at me?" Draco said with a sad face. "If my father knew that I was deducted 50 points, he would definitely scold me to death." Ronald suddenly felt that he and Draco had a common topic. "My mother is the same. She will definitely scold me severely." Harry looked at Draco and Ronald, who suddenly began to comfort each other, and suddenly felt a little amused. "What should we do now?" Hermione looked at Ian and asked, "Are we really going to patrol the Forbidden Forest tomorrow? How can it be fake?" Ian shrugged. "Professor McGonagall has spoken. We must go." Cassandra was quite calm. "Let's go. Just treat it as an adventure." "Adventure?" Draco's voice suddenly rose several degrees. "Cassandra, are you mistaken? That's the Forbidden Forest. Who knows how many dangerous creatures there are in it? What are you afraid of?" Cassandra rolled her eyes at Draco. "There are so many of us, and Hagrid is here. What can go wrong?" "BTB, Draco muttered and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Ian. Okay, Draco, don't scare yourself. Cassandra is right. There's so many of us, and Hagrid is here. Nothing will go wrong. Ian said, holding Hermione and Cassandra's hands. Let's go. Let's go back and rest first. We have to patrol the Forbidden Forest tomorrow night. Hermione and Cassandra were dragged away by Ian, leaving Harry, Draco, and Ronald looking at each other. Ronald hesitated. He's always like this. Harry smiled. Let's go back too. Ian took Hermione and Cassandra back to the castle, and then let them go back to their dormitories to rest. He sat on the sofa in the lounge and began to think about patrolling the Forbidden Forest tomorrow night. If he remembered the original plot correctly, they should meet the lingering noseless monster and the centaur Forenza tomorrow. Ian wondered if there was any way to save the unicorn. If he saved the unicorn that was supposed to die, there would be many benefits. The unicorn would definitely not be stingy to give him, the benefactor, some pure and sacred blood and hair. At that time, he could sell all of them, or ask Snape to innovate some new potions. Ding! Detected the host's strong desire. Ancient magic near-death quick rescue spell. Special price 99 heart value. You really know how to pick the time. Ian rolled his eyes, but still chose to buy it. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Purchase successful. Ian's mind suddenly gained a lot of knowledge about this dying quick rescue spell. This spell can revive a creature when it is dying. As long as there is still a breath, this spell can save it. Ian thought that this spell should be able to save the unicorn. Ian was thinking and suddenly felt someone sitting next to him. He looked up and saw Cassandra. Why are you still awake? Ian looked at Cassandra in surprise. Aren't you still awake? Cassandra said lightly. She looked into Ian's green eyes. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about patrolling the Forbidden Forest tomorrow night? Yeah. Ian nodded. I always feel uneasy. Cassandra frowned. It should be fine. Professor McGonagall is not the kind of professor who will put students in danger. Ian didn't speak. Professor McGonagall certainly wouldn't deliberately let them get into danger. If it was the Forbidden Forest at ordinary times, they would certainly not be in danger under the protection of Hagrid. But the problem is that Professor McGonagall didn't know that Voldemort would appear in the Forbidden Forest. Don't worry. Seeing that Ian still looked worried, Cassandra reached out and held Ian's hand. I will protect you. Ian was amused by Cassandra's words. Cassandra, I should be the one protecting you. Ian. Cassandra suddenly moved closer to Ian, and the distance between him and her was only 1 centimeter. The little witch held Ian's face and kissed the corner of his mouth gently. Good night, Ian. After saying that, Cassandra stood up and left, and Ian sat on the sofa in a daze, reaching out to touch the corner of his mouth. There was still Cassandra's warmth there. Has he been teased? Ian's brain was still down. On the other side, Cassandra ran back to the Slytherin girls' dormitory with a ruddy face. Cassandra covered her face and lay on the bed, with Ian's dazed look in her mind. What was she doing just now? How could she suddenly do that? But Ian's dazed look is very handsome. Cassandra rolled on the bed for several times before forcing herself to calm down. Forget it. It's just a kiss on the corner of the mouth. They're still young. It's no big deal. Cassandra thought so and closed her eyes. Ian sat on the sofa in a daze for a long time before he stood up and went back to the dormitory. Lying on the bed, Ian tossed and turned and couldn't sleep, with Cassandra leaning in and kissing him in his mind. Hermione had never kissed him so boldly, but Cassandra got there first. Is Hermione considered to be arrogant? Hermione, yes. Yes. Ian was just thinking about it, and he didn't know how long it took before he fell asleep. The next day, when Ian and the other 6 were having dinner in the hall, Ian clearly felt that many eyes were secretly staring at them. Why do Harry and the other 3 look so bad? Ian glanced at the Gryffindor table in confusion. Ian, don't you know? The news of your night out has spread everywhere. Theodore pointed to the Slytherin hourglass. Everyone knows that you have deducted 150 points each for Slytherin and Gryffindor. The people in Gryffindor are, isolating Harry and the others. Theodore tried to choose his words. Ian frowned. Then why didn't anyone in Slytherin target the 3 of us? Blaise walked over slowly with a toast. My dear prefect, you alone have added more than 150 points to the college. What right do they have to blame you? As for Cassandra and Draco, a young lady from the Wally family and a young Master Malfoy, who would be so blind to offend them? Ian, that makes sense. So, Harry and the others are in a bad situation now. Blaise shrugged. But didn't Hermione also add a lot of points for Gryffindor? Ian frowned and looked at Hermione, the little which was lowering her head and not speaking. His Hermione is so smart. Even though she was teased by Snape in class, she still earned a lot of points for Gryffindor. Of course, Hermione also added a lot of points for Gryffindor, but don't forget that Harry and Ronald hardly added any points for the college before, but often deducted points. Blaise said, and your Miss Know-It-All is a friend of Harry and Ronald, so the Gryffindor students will certainly isolate Hermione. Ian frowned even more. He stood up and looked at the Gryffindor table. There was no one sitting next to Harry and the other two, and the three of them lowered their heads and didn't speak. Ian, what are you going to do? Draco saw Ian stand up and immediately looked at him vigilantly. Nothing. Ian said lightly, you guys eat, I'll go to the Gryffindor table. After Ian finished speaking, he walked straight to the Gryffindor table without waiting for Draco's reaction. Cassandra didn't say anything, just quietly looked at the direction Ian left. Ian sat directly next to Hermione in the surprised eyes of Harry and the other two. Harry looked at Ian in surprise. Although everyone in Hogwarts knew that they got along well, Ian would never sit at the Gryffindor table so blatantly. Chapter 60, The Heroine of Twilight, Isabella. The next day, when Ian and the other six were having dinner in the hall, Ian clearly felt that many eyes were secretly staring at them. I say, why do Harry and the other three look so unhappy? Ian looked at the Gryffindor table in confusion. Ian, don't you know? The news of your six-night outing has spread everywhere. Theodore pointed to the Slytherin hourglass. Everyone knows that you have deducted 150 points for Slytherin and Gryffindor respectively. The Gryffindor people are isolating Harry and the others. Theodore tried to choose his words. Ian frowned. Then why didn't anyone in Slytherin target the three of us? Blaise walked over slowly with a piece of toast. My dear prefect, you alone have added more than 150 points to the college. Why do they blame you? We Slytherins are not ignorant of right and wrong. As for Cassandra and Draco, a young lady from the Wally family and a young master from Malfoy, who would be so blind as to offend them? Ian, that makes sense. So, Harry and the others are in a bad situation now. Blaise shrugged. But didn't Hermione also add a lot of points for Gryffindor? Although not 150 points, but at least 100 points, right? Ian frowned and looked at Hermione, the little which was keeping her head down and not talking. Hermione is so smart, and she was teased by Snape in class, which was not a big deal for Gryffindor. Of course, Hermione also added a lot of points for Gryffindor. But don't forget that Harry and Ronald hardly added points for the college before, but often deducted points. Blaise said, and your Miss Know-It-All is a friend of Harry and Ronald, so of course the Gryffindor students will isolate Hermione as well. Ian's brows tightened. He stood up and looked at the long table of Gryffindor. There was no one sitting next to Harry and the other two, and the three of them kept their heads down and didn't talk. Ian, what are you doing? Draco saw Ian stand up and immediately looked at him warily. Nothing. Ian said lightly, you guys eat, I'll go to the Gryffindor table. He went to chat with the lions. He wanted to eat braised lion's head. Ian said, without waiting for Draco's reaction, he went straight to the Gryffindor table. Cassandra didn't say anything, just quietly looked at the direction Ian left. Ian sat directly next to Hermione in the surprised eyes of Harry and the other two. Harry looked at Ian in surprise. Although everyone in Hogwarts knew that they played well, Ian never sat at the Gryffindor table so blatantly. How was your meal? Ian seemed not to notice the strange looks of the people around him, and picked up a toast by himself. Ian. Hermione looked at Ian, her eyes red. Ian couldn't stand Hermione looking at him like that, so he quickly comforted her softly. It's okay, Hermione. We can just add the points back. Well, he has already written down all the things against his Hermione. In 2 days, he will put 1,000 people in a sack a day. Ian, you sit here. Won't the Slytherin people say anything about you? Ronald asked cautiously. Why do they say that about me? Ian took a bite of toast. I'm the prefect of Slytherin, and I often add points for the school. What qualifications do they have? Harry said depressedly. Ian, what do you think we should do? Now everyone is blaming us. Overnight, the Gryffindor students changed their attitude towards him as the savior. He went from being the most popular and beloved figure in Gryffindor to the most hated person in an instant. Wherever Harry went, the Gryffindor students would point fingers at him and accuse him. Don't mind them. Ian rolled his eyes and said loudly enough for all the Gryffindors to hear. As long as you two earned back the 50 points you lost, these accusations will naturally disappear. Harry nodded and suddenly realized something. Wait, why two? Where's Hermione? Ian sneered. Hermione earned more than half of Gryffindor's points by herself. What qualifications do they have to blame Hermione? They always talked about us Slytherins in the past, but at least we Slytherins will not isolate students who have made contributions to the college. As soon as Ian said this, the Gryffindor students around him looked at Ian. However, there were also many sensible little lions who lowered their heads and reflected on themselves after hearing this. If there were no other people around, Hermione would have wanted to hug Ian and give him a big kiss. Ian, thank you. Hermione's eyes were red and her voice was choked. Okay, don't cry. Ian comforted Hermione softly. Don't worry. If Gryffindor doesn't welcome you, Slytherin will welcome you. Don't be sad. Hermione, wait 2 days. I will put those people in sacks and beat them up. Ian lowered his voice and said wolfishly. Hermione, who was originally very sad, couldn't help but laugh out loud when she heard this. Then you have to avoid my roommates. They're all comforting me, not like others. Hermione blinked at Ian. Ian looked at Hermione in shock. He thought Hermione would stop him from doing this, but he didn't expect Hermione to ask him to avoid her roommates. This is too cool. Point to your roommates, and I'll avoid them. Ian said quickly. Hermione pointed to the girls beside her. This is Lavender Brown, Parvati Patil, Padma Patil, Isabella Swan. They all smiled at Ian and said hello. Ian also said hello to a few people. He was familiar with these people. Lavender Brown, Ronald's first girlfriend, the Patil sisters were Harry and Ronald's dance partners at the Goblet of Fireball. And as for the last one, Ian looked at the strange Gryffindor girl, and when he saw the girl's delicate and beautiful face, his eyes lit up. So pretty. Gryffindor has such a pretty little witch. How come he doesn't know? And she looks familiar. Isn't this Christine? Ding. A target for capture is detected. Isabella Swan, the heroine of Twilight. What? Ian's eyes widened for a moment, and he asked loudly in his heart, System, are you sure? Isabella Swan, this is the world of Harry Potter, the heroine of Twilight. How could she appear here? Ding. Ding. Add $caret system percent. $% at 34%. The system can only detect people, not backgrounds. However, this does not affect the capture of dorm students, Ian. Yes. He looked at the beautiful Isabella and fell into deep thought. Ian. Hermione saw that Ian had been staring at Isabella and couldn't help but frowned and whispered, Ian came back to his senses and smiled awkwardly. Hermione stretched out her hand and pinched Ian's waist hard. Don't keep staring at other girls. Ian gasped in pain. He looked at Hermione complainingly. Am I that kind of person? Yes, Hermione said without hesitation. You just stared at Isabella, almost stunned. There is already a Cassandra. Do you want another Isabella? Hermione frowned. Does she have something to do with girls whose names end with La? I just think she looks familiar. Ian rubbed his nose and muttered softly. Hermione snorted coldly. You think all the good-looking girls look familiar. Ian, God knows, he is really not that kind of person. Chapter 61. Vampires have superpowers? Stop playing. Hey, you couple, young couple. Why are you quarreling all of a sudden? Hearing this familiar way of speaking, Ian, Hermione, Harry, and Ronald all looked over. George and Fred walked over with their arms around each other, with teasing smiles on their faces. Hermione's cheeks instantly turned red, but she didn't deny anything. Ian, on the other hand, pinched Hermione's little hand generously and looked at the two of them. Why did you two come to have breakfast just now? You got up so late. Did you go out for a night tour yesterday? How is it possible? How can we go out for a night tour? The twins certainly couldn't admit it in public. But we heard it. Fred shook his head. George added, "You six. We were caught for night outings, and each of us was fined 5,000. That's too bad. We've never seen such a bad situation. One person was deducted 50 points. 3 people from one college were deducted a total of 150 points. Gryffindor is almost the last one." Listening to the two singing the same tune, Harry and Ronald lowered their heads more and more, wishing they could forget everything on the spot. "I heard that you were isolated." George shrugged. "It doesn't matter. Fred and I often lose points. We've gotten used to it." "Yes, everyone will forget it after a while." Fred patted Harry on the shoulder. "Small problem." After the 607 twins' jokes, Hermione felt much better, and even Harry and Ronald raised their heads. Ian frowned slightly. Didn't his encouragement education just now work? Harry and his friends are more suitable for this kind of joking comfort? I don't understand. Maybe he is not suitable for comforting others. He is more suitable for comforting pretty girls with his handsome face. Thinking of this, Ian stretched out his big hand and gently pinched Hermione's little hand. It feels good and soft." Ahem. Hermione's cheeks were slightly red, and she coughed lightly, indicating that Ian was still there. Ian chuckled and retracted his hand. George and Fred looked at each other, and a smile appeared on the corners of their mouths. They seemed to have discovered something interesting. Ian left after sitting for a while. After all, it was not good for him to sit at the Gryffindor table all the time. But after Ian's experience, the Gryffindor students all retracted their gazes and no longer stared at Harry and the other two like before. Ian sat back in Slytherin. As soon as he sat down, Cassandra said something faintly. "You were staring at Isabella just now." Hearing these cold words, Ian panicked and quickly denied. "I didn't. I just felt that she looked a little familiar." "Huh," Cassandra sneered. "You feel that all good-looking girls look familiar." "Ian, question mark. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? You seem to have heard it before, BC." Cassandra saw Ian standing there in a daze. She stretched out her little hand and pinched Ian's waist hard. "This." Ian gasped in pain. He looked at Cassandra complainingly. "Why are you pinching me, too?" Cassandra crossed her arms and snorted. "You too? Hermione pinched you just now." Ian touched the tip of his nose and did not deny it. Seeing Ian's reaction, Cassandra became even angrier. She stretched out her hand and pinched Ian again. "Ouch! Ouch!" Ian screamed. He looked at Cassandra and begged for mercy. "Miss, let me go." Cassandra retracted her hand, sneered, and did not embarrass Ian anymore. Ian rubbed his lower back, silently shedding tears in his heart. What sin he had committed today. Hermione and Cassandra did not understand the value of Christine. No, Isabella. Thinking of this, Ian looked up at Isabella at the Gryffindor table again. Well, she was really pretty. But, system, I still want you to explain to me why the heroine of Twilight is a wizard. Ian asked silently in his heart. Ding. In the original world of Twilight, Isabella has an extremely special physique that can block all vampire abilities, such as mind reading, speed enhancement, etc. Ding. Host, in this world, Isabella is a wizard, which is very reasonable. Ian was speechless and actually felt that the system made some sense. Wait, Isabella is here, so other characters in Twilight don't exist too? Ian suddenly thought of a question. Ding. Of course, yeah. Okay, now vampires have special abilities. How do you want me to play? Ian rubbed his temples with a headache. Ding. Host, the special abilities of vampires are suppressed in the world of Harry Potter, and wizards can completely use magic to resist the special abilities of vampires. After all, the top of this world is magic. After hearing what the system said, Ian was relieved. That's more like it. If the vampire's ability is not suppressed, what else can he do? Once Voldemort is resurrected, he will wave his hand and all the vampires will join the Death Eaters. What kind of savior is he? Hogwarts will just surrender directly. Ian got the exact answer, and a big stone in his heart fell to the ground. He hummed a little tune and ate the bacon on the plate. In the potion class, the few people who got Ian's guidance raised their hands desperately to answer the questions, especially Hermione, who wanted to stand on the stool so that Snape could see her at a glance. Harry and Ronald also changed their previous decadence and raised their hands with Hermione. Draco and Cassandra also spoke actively, although they didn't get as many points as Ian. Of course, this is because Snape completely ignored them, and he only had Ian in his eyes. Ian, you answer this question. Ian stood up slowly and gave a perfect answer. Very good. Snape nodded with satisfaction. Slytherin, add 10 points. Snape glanced at Hermione, who raised her hand high. For Ian's sake, he resisted the urge to deduct points from Gryffindor and asked Hermione, Ms. Granger, tell me, what is the function of the blood tonic? It can be used to replenish blood for people who have lost blood. Hermione stood up and answered, Snape nodded and said lightly, Gryffindor, at 5 points. Hermione smiled brightly when she heard the extra points. She subconsciously looked at Ian and made a yeah gesture to him. Ian chuckled and winked at Hermione. This scene was naturally seen by Snape on the podium. He snorted and said nothing. Although Harry and the others did not get extra points in the potions class, they were not deducted points by Snape like before. The know-it-all lady who helped the useless duo prepare for class was a well-known person. Harry and Ronald also passed the following classes with Hermione's notes. Professor Flitwick even gave Harry and Ronald 10 extra points each in the Charms class. This made the two very happy. They had always been lagging behind before, and this was the first time they had scored in class. After class, Harry and Ronald surrounded Hermione and showed her great courtesy. Hermione, you are so amazing, Harry exclaimed sincerely. Yes, Hermione, you are simply our savior. Ronald also echoed. Hermione was a little embarrassed by the praise from the two. She waved her hand and said, It's nothing. As long as you two read my notes carefully, we can get all the canons soon. Harry and Ronald both nodded heavily, indicating that they would study hard. No matter how hard the 6 little wizards tried, they still couldn't survive the night patrol of the Forbidden Forest. Filch, the administrator, was responsible for sending them to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, and then Hagrid took over. It's a pity that we can't punish students in the old way anymore, Filch said regretfully. In the past, students were punished by tying their thumbs and hanging them in the basement. I really miss those screams. One Filch glanced at Ian and softened his tone. Of course, Ian, you must have been connected by them. In the whole Hogwarts, only Ian respected him and often brought dried fish to Mrs. Norris. Mr. Ian Potter would definitely not be as naughty as those little wizards. Ian, who took the lead in making trouble, gave Filch an awkward but polite smile and decided not to explain his strange misunderstandings to Filch. Chapter 62. First meeting with Voldemort. Filch led the 6 little wizards to Hagrid with a threatening voice. 6. Filch paused. 5 troublemakers, Hagrid, Harry and Draco, and Ronald. Do you dare to be more hypocritical? Hagrid looked at the 6 little brats he had just met yesterday. It's great to see you again. Not good at all. Draco muttered softly. Okay, it's time for you to go on patrol. Filch urged. Hagrid nodded and walked into the Forbidden Forest with the 6 little wizards. Hagrid walked in front with a lantern. His tall figure was like a small mountain. The 6 little wizards followed behind him like a long black shadow. Come on, kids, don't be afraid. Although there are many dangerous creatures in the Forbidden Forest, as long as you follow me closely, I promise you will be safe. Hagrid said in a rough voice, We have an important mission today. I heard there are werewolves and vampires in the Forbidden Forest. Draco swallowed. Hagrid, what are we going to do? A trace of solemnity flashed across Hagrid's face. A few days ago, a unicorn was attacked in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid suddenly stopped and looked at the silver bloodstains on the ground not far away. He walked over, squatted down, and picked up a long silver hair on the ground. This is the hair of a unicorn. It's still stained with blood. It looks like it was pulled off. It seems that another unicorn is in trouble again. It's seriously injured. Hagrid said seriously, We have to find this poor little guy quickly. Hermione, Cassandra, Ronald, you 3 follow me. Hagrid arranged. Harry, Draco, Ian, you 3 go over there and take a look. Hermione and Cassandra looked at each other and looked up at Hagrid. Hagrid, can't we follow Ian? It's better for you 2 little girls to follow me. Hagrid scratched his head. I heard from the professors that Ian is very powerful. I feel more at ease with the three boys together. Ronald subconsciously pointed at himself. What about me? Hagrid. Sorry, Ronald. I think you are weaker than the three of them. Hagrid said honestly. You should follow me. It's safer. Ronald, Harry and Draco and Ian. Hermione and Cassandra. 000. Although Hagrid was telling the truth, is it really okay to be so straightforward? Ronald glanced at Harry and Draco, who were laughing secretly with resentment, and turned to Hagrid. Hagrid, we want Fong to follow us, Draco said hurriedly. He felt that this big dog should be able to protect the three of them. At the very least, its majestic and domineering appearance could give them a little comfort. Okay, but I have to remind you, Draco, Fong is a coward. Hagrid looked down at Fong, who was drooling. Draco looked at Fong and didn't think that Fong was a coward. Okay, Fong, follow Ian and the other two. Hagrid ordered. Fong understood what Hagrid said, barked at Hagrid twice, then wagged his tail and ran to Draco's side. Then let's go. If you find a unicorn, don't act rashly and come back to me immediately. Hagrid said solemnly. Ian nodded and took Harry and Draco to another path. The Forbidden Forest was dark, with only the light in Draco's hand emitting a faint light. The branches blocked the sky and blocked the sky tightly. Ian and the other two could only see a small area around them. Ian looked at Harry and the two Burdens, then turned his head to look at Fong, who was following them and sticking out his tongue and breathing, and sighed heavily in his heart. He felt Hermione's usual mentality tonight. Draco held the oil lamp, complaining as if to encourage himself. Harry, Ian, if my father knew I was holding the oil lamp, he would definitely scold me. This is a job for servants. Why, you want me to hold it? Ian glanced at Draco. No. Draco shook his head like a rattle. Ian, I don't mean that. You two stay behind and don't make trouble for me. Ian rolled his eyes. Just follow me, find the unicorn, and go back to Hagrid quickly. Harry looked around the Forbidden Forest and asked as he walked. Ian, do you think we can find the unicorn? As long as the three of us follow the blood trail, we should be able to find it. Ian looked down at the silver blood trail on the ground. But be careful, the things that attack unicorns may be very dangerous. Ian, what kind of danger do you think the three of us will encounter? Draco couldn't help asking while holding the oil lamp. Vampires? Werewolves? Or those scary magical creatures? Harry swallowed and added. Ian looked at them speechlessly. I say, you two have two rich imaginations. This is the Forbidden Forest, Draco and Harry said in unison. Well, you may encounter whatever you said. Ian said helplessly, but believe in my strength, okay? Of course we believe in your strength. Draco and Harry said quickly. They have seen Ian's strength. Whether it is charms or transfiguration, Ian is the best. With Ian around, they are indeed relieved. Harry looked at his calm brother and couldn't help but said, Ian, aren't you worried or afraid? No. What is there to worry about? Ian walked in front with his wand. He was not worried at all, and even wanted to test the strength of the noseless monster later. He was sure that Old Man Dumbledore had already cast the disillusionment charm and was quietly following them, so there was nothing to worry about. It was just a small adventure in the Forbidden Forest. Just then, a low roar suddenly came from the front, echoing in the silent Forbidden Forest, sounding particularly creepy. What's that sound? Draco froze, and the oil lamp in his hand began to flicker. Fong seemed to sense some danger, and hid behind Draco with his tail between his legs, as if he wanted to use him as a shield. Let's go over and take a look. Harry took a deep breath and walked forward a few steps. Before he had walked a few steps, Ian suddenly stretched out his hand to block Harry. Harry didn't know what was going on and looked back at Ian. What's wrong? Ian, don't go. I found the unicorn. Ian looked coldly at the shadow on the ground not far away, holding the wand tightly in his hand. Ian stared at the shadow on the ground. Of course he knew what it was. Quirrell. To be more precise, it was Voldemort who possessed Quirrell, the lingering Voldemort. Voldemort also noticed the uninvited guests. He didn't care to continue sucking the blood of the unicorn. He slowly raised his head, revealing half of his face that was not clear. Silver blood was still dripping from the corner of his mouth. Draco screamed, particularly miserably. He pulled Ian and Harry and wanted to run, but his legs and feet were weak, and he couldn't use any strength at all. The moment the shadow raised his head, Harry felt a piercing pain from the lightning scar on his forehead, and couldn't help but hold his forehead in pain. Without waiting for the three to react, a green light directly attacked Ian and the other two. Ian looked at the big melon after many years, and his body moved faster than his brain, pulling Harry, and Draco barely managed to dodge the spell. No moral ethics. He just came up and bite the big melon. Voldemort used this thing as a weapon to eliminate you. Don't be dazed. You two run. Go find Hagrid. Ian shouted at Harry and Draco. Ian pushed Harry and Draco, raised his hand, and cast a spell on Voldemort. And by the way, he put armor on the two losers. Shattered into pieces, all petrified, set a trap for the enemy. Seeing Ian cast the spell without magic, Draco finally came to his senses. He struggled for a while, and without any nonsense, he pulled Harry and ran. Ian, be careful. We'll be back with Hagrid soon. Draco struggled to pull Harry up. Harry didn't want to run away at all. He struggled in Ian's direction. Draco, Ian is still there. My brother is still there. Draco was so anxious that he didn't know where Fanya had run to, and Harry refused to leave. He really deserved to be called Gryffindor, so stubborn. Ian is stronger than the two of us combined, Draco said as he dragged Harry. Let's find Hagrid first. The faster we run, the more chances Ian has of surviving. Ian, we have to hurry, Harry cried as he ran as fast as he could. Hagrid, we must find little Hagrid as soon as possible. Chapter 63. Centaur Firenze Voldemort looked at the direction the two men left, stood up shakily, and roared, as if he was scolding them for disturbing his meal. He cast several spells in the direction Harry and Draco ran, but they were all stopped by Ian. It seems that Voldemort's main target is still Harry, but think about it. After all, in the beginning, Harry was the savior who survived. Ian watched Harry and Draco run away, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He turned his head to look at Voldemort and sneered. Come on, let me see how strong you are. He didn't believe that he, a man who had lived 2 lives, could not beat a lingering Voldemort. Ian held the wand and shouted loudly. Petrified, fall to the ground, imprison quickly. He didn't believe that he couldn't kill him by throwing spells crazily. Ian's spells all fell on Voldemort. Even though his magic power was low now, he still injured the 783 nose monster. Rubbish, Ian mocked Voldemort, whose wand almost dropped out of his hand. Voldemort seemed to be angry, and the green light attacked Ian again. Avada Kedavra! Ian was not to be outdone, and directly used the crushing spell he had just learned on Voldemort. Smashed to pieces. The two of them were in a confrontation and began to output magic power continuously. The two spells formed a lightning-like beam of light against each other, one green and one red, and the Forbidden Forest was illuminated by 2 strong lights. And gritted his teeth and persisted. He could feel his magic power constantly draining away, but he did not dare to relax at all, for fear that he would be bitten by the big melon if he was not careful. Damn, how can a magic power of this noseless monster be so strong? Ian couldn't help cursing in his heart. He felt like a small boat in the sea, which could be overturned by huge waves at any time. Is this Voldemort dying soon? So he is not afraid of death. His magic power is free, right? Why hasn't old Dumbledore made a move yet? I can't tell that he is dying. Just when Ian was about to give up, suddenly, there was a hurried and chaotic sound of horse hooves. When Voldemort saw that it was the centaurs, he didn't want to fight anymore. He burst out his magic power, unilaterally ended the confrontation, and fled in a hurry. Ian looked at Voldemort, who was fleeing in a panic, and he relaxed and collapsed on the ground, breathing in the fresh air. Damn, it almost cost him his life. The centaurs rushed to the scene and breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Ian, who was unharmed. Are you okay? The centaur Firenze walked to Ian, his tone full of worry. Ian didn't notice the abnormality in Firenze's tone, patted his clothes, and stood up. He was about to say something when he suddenly felt a tingling sensation on his face. Ian subconsciously reached out to touch it and saw a trace of blood on his palm. Ian was stunned. He stared blankly at the blood on his hands and then felt the pain on his face. In the confrontation with Voldemort just now, he was obviously not injured. No, he just dodged several spells, so he was fine, but his face was scratched. Voldemort, IFKU%. Ian's face turned red all of a sudden, and he cursed in the direction where Voldemort ran away. Voldemort, you big fool, at $% carat percent at. You ruined your own face. You want to ruin my handsome face. Ian's mouth was as sweet as honey. IFKU $% carat percent at. Your mother % carat percent. Seeing the little wizard suddenly become emotionally unstable, the centaur Firenze went up to persuade him. Stop scolding. He's already run away. FK, don't stop me. I'm going to scold him to death. Ian was so angry that he jumped up and down. Ian pointed at the bloody marks on his face and was so angry. See, this is the guy who makes me a living. He dared to hit my face. Is he jealous of my good looks? His handsome face. That was his face to seduce the little witch, ah? That was an important item for him to make friends with classmates and gain the trust of teachers. The centaur Firenze looked at the bloody marks on Ian's face, was silent for a while, and said, "In fact, your scratches will be in 2 days." Firenze looked at the furious Ian and swallowed the words on his lips. When Hagrid arrived with a crossbow and other little wizards, what he saw was that the centaurs surrounded Ian and talked to each other. Hagrid thought there was a conflict between them and ran over. "Hey, everyone, is there any misunderstanding?" Hagrid hadn't finished speaking when he heard Ian continue to swear. "I'm going to pull out his intestines, tie them to his head, let him live on dragon dung every day." Hagrid, he was stunned, looking at Ian, who was surrounded by centaurs, with scratches on his face and some torn clothes, but he looked aggressive, as if he wanted to kill someone. The centaurs stood aside, helpless, and some even tried to treat Ian's wounds. The centaur leader Ronan saw Hagrid's appearance and guessed that he might have misunderstood and quickly explained, "Hagrid, we are here to save him." Ronan paused. He should have been injured in the face by the guy who attacked the unicorn, so that's why he was angry. "Oh, thank God, it's okay." Hagrid breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that these little guys would encounter some danger. Harry was so excited to see his brother still alive that tears welled up in his eyes. He just took 2 steps forward and was pushed away by Hermione and Cassandra. "Ian." Hermione looked at the scars on Ian's face with heartache. "Your face is injured." Cassandra also looked distressed. It was too much. She had the heart to attack. Such a handsome face. Ian waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. His eyes revealed a bit of viciousness. "I'm fine. That guy is in trouble. If he dares to joke with his handsome face, he will joke with his dog life. Voldemort, guaranteed death. He will destroy at least one of his Horcruxes a year. You know who the guy who attacked the unicorn is, right?" Hagrid looked at the centaur leader Ronan with a serious face. Ronan didn't say anything, but Firenze looked at the unicorn and said, "It's not a good thing to say the name of that person at this time." Hagrid nodded and looked at the unicorn whose blood was sucked by Voldemort. Hagrid, he drank the blood of the unicorn. 5.2 Ian frowned. "Ian Potter, do you know what unicorn blood can be used for?" Firenze looked at Ian. Ian was stunned. Shouldn't this be asked to Harry? Why did it become him? Firenze didn't expect Ian to answer him, and he talked to himself. Killing a unicorn is an extremely cruel thing. Only those who have nothing and want everything will commit such a heinous crime. Ian listened to Firenze's words and said subconsciously, "Unicorn blood can prolong life." Yes, pure blood that can prolong your life. Firenze continued, "Even if you are dying, you must pay a heavy price for it. In order to save your own life, you slaughtered a pure, weak, and helpless life. So from the moment its blood touches your lips, you will have a half-dead creature, a cursed life." Chapter 64, Ancient Magic. Resurrection spell. Listening to Firenze's words, everyone's expressions were particularly solemn. Harry asked anxiously, "Who would be so crazy?" Forenza noticed Harry then. He looked at the lightning-shaped scar on Harry's forehead and was slightly stunned. Harry Potter, can't you guess? Forenza said. Who would choose to live like this? Forenza, the guy who attacked the unicorn, is also the murderer of our parents, right? Ian looked at Forenza and said in a low voice. Harry subconsciously touched the scar on his forehead. You mean the one who killed the unicorn and drank his blood to prolong his life is Voldemort? Forenza was silent, neither admitting nor denying. Impossible. Didn't everyone say he was dead? How could he? Draco said palely. Some people say he's dead. I think that's pure nonsense. Forenza looked at Draco deeply. I'm afraid he doesn't have much humanity left, so he can't die. Voldemort is at the end of his rope now, so he can only fight to the death. Ian walked slowly towards the unicorn. Killing such a pure creature, Voldemort must be living a life worse than death now. So someone must want to steal. Harry hesitated. Good luck to you. Forenza looked up at the starry sky. Before, the Star of Destiny has been misunderstood. Even centaurs can't avoid mistakes. I hope it will be the same this time. Mars tonight. Wait, what are you doing? Forenza was halfway through his words when he saw Ian holding his wand and pointing it at the unicorn. Ian ignored him and got the accurate information from the system that Unicorn 12 had only one breath left. So he started his great cause of resurrecting the unicorn. Save the dying. Life come back. Siasu. Ian chanted in a low voice, and the tip of the wand emitted a soft white light and sank into the body of the unicorn. What is he doing? Hagrid looked confused. Harry and the others looked at Ian in amazement. It was the first time they saw Ian use such a cool magic. Is that ancient magic? He's trying to revive the unicorn. Ronan looked at him in shock. Ian, is he crazy? There is indeed a resurrection spell in ancient magic, but it is only a legend. No one has ever learned it, let alone used it. Besides, can ancient magic be used by him at his age? It is extremely obscure magic. Under the gaze of everyone, Ian's resurrection has come to an end. He whispered, "Wake up, pure spirit." The soft white light enveloped the unicorn, and the wounds on the unicorn that were sucked by blood healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The unicorn, which was originally dying, slowly stood up in the shocked eyes of everyone. Although it was still a little weak, it was indeed alive. Really resurrected? Hagrid was stunned. Hermione and others looked at Ian in shock. They knew that Ian was very strong, but they didn't expect that Ian was so strong. Even the legendary resurrection spell. The unicorn seemed to know that Ian was the one who saved it, lowered its head, and rubbed Ian intimately. This night, Ian was fighting again. Voldemort resurrected the unicorn again, and his magic power was exhausted. Before he could touch the unicorn that only pure girls could get close to, he closed his eyes and fainted. After loading the coins, he fell asleep. So cool. Ian, Hermione, and the others shouted in panic. He's fine, but he fainted because of excessive consumption of magic power. Hagrid checked Ian and breathed a sigh of relief. Let's leave here first. Ronan watched Hagrid take Ian away, and then looked at Forenza. He is very strong. Forenza looked at the direction where Ian left, his eyes deep. The trajectory of the Destiny Star allowed us to find him, but I can't see through him. Even you can't see through it, Ronan said in shock. Yes, his fate is like a flower in the fog, vague and unclear. Forenza retracted his gaze. Let's go. We should go back. Forenza looked up at the starry sky. Mars was particularly bright tonight, as if foreshadowing the coming storm. If Ian was still here at this time, he would definitely complain. The Riddle Man should die, always saying specious things. But unfortunately, Ian was still in a coma. When he woke up, it was already noon the next day. Ian opened his eyes and saw Hermione and others guarding the bed. Why are you all here? Ian rubbed his temples and sat up. Ian, you scared me. Hermione looked at Ian with red eyes. How can you use such dangerous magic? Although Cassandra still looked noble and cold, her red eyes betrayed her true emotions. You should go to Gryffindor. Slytherin doesn't have a crazy person like you who doesn't care about his life. Harry, as the elder brother, was even more self-blaming. It's all my fault. If I could be stronger. Stop. Ian looked at the self-blaming people and smiled helplessly. I'm fine, right? Besides, I'm very strong. By the way, where's the unicorn? How is it? It's fine. Hagrid left it in the hut. Hagrid said it would be fine after a few days of rest. Hermione poured Ian a glass of water. Don't mess around next time. Got it. Ian responded helplessly. He dared to do that because he had already considered the consequences and tried to be a good guy in front of old Dumbledore. After all, a little wizard who exhausted his magic power to save a unicorn couldn't be a bad guy, right? Ian was talking to Hermione and the others when the door of the ward was knocked. Come in. The door was pushed open, and it was Dumbledore and Snape. Professor Dumbledore, Professor Snape. Several little guys shouted in unison. Dumbledore smiled and nodded slightly, but Snape pulled a face as if someone owed him 500 gold galleons. Ian, you're awake. Dumbledore smiled and approached Ian's bed. I heard you did something great last night. Professor Dumbledore, I just did what I should do. Ian smiled. You're too kind. No, saving unicorns is a great thing. Dumbledore shook his head. If it weren't for you, the song unicorn would probably be in danger. If Mr. Potter could be less of a hero, he wouldn't run to the hospital wing every other day. Snape sneered and interrupted Dumbledore's words. Ian heard this and shrugged helplessly. Professor Snape, I don't want to either. You better not want to. Snape glanced at Ian coldly and threw him another bottle of potion. Thank you, Professor Snape. Ian took the potion and smelled it. He knew that it was a potion to restore magic power, and it was the kind without side effects. TSK, the old bat who said one thing and thought another. Severus, don't scare our little Ian anymore. Dumbledore smiled and joked, then turned to look at the others. Children, Ian and I have something to say alone. Can you go out first? Hermione and the others heard this and left the ward obediently, and also closed the door for them considerately. Dumbledore and Ian were the only ones left in the ward. Ian, I came here this time mainly because I have something to ask you. Ian heard this and his heart moved. He guessed what Dumbledore was going to ask, but his face remained calm. Professor Dumbledore, please ask. Where did you learn the resurrection spell you used last night? Dumbledore looked at Ian sharply. You should know that it is ancient magic, and it is a legend in ancient magic. Sure enough, the Oldby came to ask this. Professor Dumbledore, you know, Harry and I went back to the old Potter house a few days ago. Ian had already thought of an excuse. In the basement 380 of the old Potter house, I found some ancient magic books and scrolls, and the resurrection spell was learned from those scrolls. As he said, he took out a sheepskin scroll that looked very old from his pocket. This sheepskin scroll was given by the system to ensure that the Oldby could not see any clues. Because I'm the head of the Potter family, these ancient magics are not allowed to be taught to Harry. Ian said and sighed, I know this spell is very dangerous, but when I saw the unicorn dying, I thought of giving it a try, and I didn't expect it to be successful. Dumbledore took the parchment scroll and frowned as he looked at the obscure ancient magic words on it. I have taught myself some ancient runes, so I can basically read the text on it. Ian said, pointing to the text on the scroll. Ian, this resurrection spell cannot be used easily. Dumbledore was silent for a long time before he spoke. You were successful last night, and there was a lot of luck involved. I know, Professor Dumbledore. Ian responded obediently. I will use it carefully in the future. No, Ian, you shouldn't use it again. Dumbledore shook his head. This spell involves the mystery of life and death, which is not something you can master now. I understand, Professor Dumbledore. Ian responded obediently, but he didn't care in his heart. Products produced by the system must be fine products. It's good that you understand. Dumbledore said, returning the parchment scroll to Ian. Keep this scroll safe and don't take it out casually in the future. Ian heard this and solemnly put away the parchment scroll. Rest well, I won't disturb you. Dumbledore said, and got up and left the ward. Looking at Dumbledore's back, Ian's eyes flashed with a cunning. Humph, you want to trick me? No way. The Oldby left, and Ian didn't stay in the hospital wing for long. He drank the potion given by Snape and couldn't wait to return to the castle. Chapter 65. The house of all requests. After returning to the castle, Ian took Hermione and the others to the room of requirement. The room of requirement is located on the 8th floor opposite the tapestry of the troll beating up Barnabas. When a user concentrates on the required venue and walks through that wall 3 times, a very smooth door will appear on the wall, allowing you to enter the room of requirement. Ian discovered this room very coincidentally and reasonably a few days ago. Ian, why did you bring us to the 8th floor? Draco pouted. I don't want to go to the Gryffindor lounge to discuss things. Ian heard this and smiled mysteriously. Who said I would take you to the Gryffindor lounge? With that, Ian took the others to the opposite side of the tapestry of the troll beating up Barnabas. Isn't there only one tapestry here? Harry scratched his head. Ian, where are you taking us? Don't worry, you'll know when you see it, Ian said, concentrating on the room of requirement, and then walked through the wall 3 times. A smooth door suddenly appeared on the wall that was originally plain. What's going on? Hermione looked at the door in front of her with a little surprise. When did a door appear here? Ian pinched Hermione's little face and explained kindly. A few days ago, I was thinking about where I could use it as a base for our conversation. I walked here and found this room. I call it the room of requirement. As long as you concentrate on the venue you need, it will become what you imagine. Really? Draco was a little skeptical. Then I wonder if it can also turn into a room full of gold galleons? Hearing this, Ian gave Draco a slap without hesitation. Can you think of something serious? Draco covered his head that was hit and closed his mouth aggrievedly. Okay, let's go in, Ian said, and pushed open the door of the room of requirement. Several people entered one after another, and Harry was the last one to enter. As soon as he entered the room, the door behind him disappeared, replaced by an ordinary wall. Wow! Harry looked at the extremely luxurious room in front of him and couldn't help but exclaimed. The room was decorated with silver green and golden red, and it looked full of 2 completely different styles of Gryffindor and Slytherin, but surprisingly harmonious. In the center was a large round table, and several soft sofas were placed around the round table, which looked very comfortable. So beautiful, Cassandra couldn't help but exclaim. Needless to say, Hermione, her eyes were shining with excitement. This is the room I imagined according to our preferences, Ian said, pointing to the bookshelf not far away. Hermione, Cassandra, I know you 2 love reading, so I put a bookshelf on purpose. Ian, you are so nice. Hermione hugged Ian with emotion. Cassandra nodded proudly. Very good, as long as you like it. Ian smiled and pulled Hermione and Cassandra to sit on the sofa. Okay, let's talk about business. Draco and Harry also gathered around, and several people sat on the sofa, looking at Ian seriously. Everyone knows that the shadow yesterday was Voldemort, Ian said solemnly, and his target is the Philosopher's Stone. Hearing the 3 words Voldemort, Draco couldn't help shuddering. For him, Voldemort is a nightmare. Draco's face was pale. Ian, Voldemort, the mysterious man, is really still alive? Do you think that night, Firenze and I were joking? Ian rolled his eyes. Which guy is 100% Voldemort? He is really still alive. Draco muttered to himself. Voldemort, you know who? Cassandra pursed her lips. He must be in bad condition. He is very weak. Otherwise, he would not suck the blood of the unicorn. Hey, everyone, we have been wrong all along. Harry suddenly spoke. We thought Snape stole the Philosopher's Stone for himself, but in fact he did it for Voldemort. He used the elixir to restore Voldemort's vitality. Is the you-know-who coming back? Ronald's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. Ian, Harry, would he want to kill you? Ronald, if Ian hadn't pushed me away, if Voldemort hadn't found the opportunity, I would have been a corpse. Harry forced a smile. It's not just the 2 of us, Harry. Ian looked at Draco. Draco, do you still remember the crazy broom at the beginning of the school year? Draco was stunned by the question. I remember. What's wrong? Voldemort wants to kill you too. Ian dropped a bombshell. What? Draco stood up from the sofa, his face full of panic. This doesn't make sense. Ian, you 2 are saviors. It's normal for him to want to kill you, but Ian interrupted Draco directly. Draco, Don't forget that the Malfoy family used to be Death Eaters and followers of Voldemort. After Voldemort fell, your father, Mr. Lucius Malfoy, claimed that he was under the control of the Imperius Curse and donated a large sum of gold galleons to the Ministry of Magic, which is how he escaped trial. Draco, to Voldemort, your Malfoy family is the one who betrayed him. Do you think he will let you, the only heir of Malfoy, go? Ian's tone was aggressive, and Draco was frightened and fell on the sofa. Draco opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Harry patted Draco on the shoulder. Draco, Ian doesn't want to scare you. He just wants you to recognize the current situation. Draco smiled bitterly. I know, I just can't accept it for a while. Reality is so cruel, Draco. Ian sighed. What we have to do now is to unite and find a way to deal with Voldemort together. Ian, Draco widened his eyes. Voldemort's ambition is not just to kill a few of us. Ian's eyes were firm. He wants the entire wizarding world to crawl at his feet. Draco, there will be no way out if you follow such a person. Damn, believe it quickly. Then complete the level-breaking game set by the old bee. In this stupid first grade, starting from next year, he will destroy one of Voldemort's Horcruxes every year. BD, the BD who is jealous of his handsome face. Don't think it will be easy. Thinking of this, Ian subconsciously touched his right cheek. When he touched the tiny scar that had not yet recovered, Ian became even angrier, and he increased his deception of Draco. Draco, we must unite to protect the people we want to protect our family and friends. Ian's expression was serious and serious. Although he has now fallen to the point of relying on unicorn blood to maintain his life, if he succeeds in stealing the Philosopher's Stone, it will be a disaster. A nightmare. Draco was silent for a long time before he slowly spoke. Ian, you are right. We should unite and work together to deal with that devil. Very good, Draco. Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. Don't worry, you won't lose if you follow me. Believe me, you'll be the best Malfoy family head in history. Hey, Ian, why do you only let me make the decision? And there is Cassandra. Why don't you ask her? Draco was in the mood to joke at this time. No need. Ian glanced at Cassandra beside him and smiled. Cassandra will only choose me. Besides, the Wally family is neutral, and they are not Death Eaters. Cassandra didn't speak, but raised her chin proudly, but her red ears betrayed her. Hermione snorted and grabbed Ian's sleeve. I will also choose you unwaveringly. Of course, Hermione, I have never doubted you. Ian rubbed Hermione's hair and smiled gently. Harry and the other two looked at each other and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. Well, they became the background again. Okay, since everyone has reached a consensus, let's think about how to deal with Voldemort together. Ian coughed lightly and brought the topic back. If you want to deal with Voldemort, the most important thing is not to let him get the Philosopher's Stone. Harry clenched his fists. We must protect the Philosopher's Stone. Hermione also nodded. That's right. As long as Voldemort can't get the Philosopher's Stone, he can't recover his full strength, so it will be easier for us to deal with him. But how can we protect the Philosopher's Stone? Ronald scratched his head. We can't stay in the basement all the time, can we? Everyone, don't forget, who is the wizard that Voldemort fears the most? Hermione's words reminded everyone. Professor Dumbledore. Cassandra blurted out. The one that the devil fears the most is Professor Dumbledore. That's right. It's Professor Dumbledore. Hermione smiled slightly. Professor Dumbledore is the only wizard that Voldemort fears. As long as Professor Dumbledore is around, Voldemort dares not act rashly. Besides, didn't Hagrid say that the professors also set a trap, and Voldemort will not easily get the Philosopher's Stone? Cassandra also calmed down. We just need to strengthen our defenses and prevent Voldemort from taking advantage of it. That's right. As long as we unite as one, we can definitely protect the Philosopher's Stone. Ian's eyes were full of determination. Everyone nodded. They must protect the Philosopher's Stone and never let Voldemort succeed. Chapter 66. End of the semester. As the end of the semester approached, the Night Walk Six were either keeping an eye on Snape's movements or preparing for the final exams. Even Hermione and Cassandra, who were strong, actively joined the review. Only Ian was not worried about the final exams. After all, it was nothing to be afraid of for him. He was more concerned about the challenges of the next school year. In the final exam of Charms, Ian scored full marks with absolute standards, and Professor Flitwick gave him an extra 20 points. For Transfiguration, Ian immediately turned the teacup into a snuff bottle with exquisite patterns and gave it to Professor McGonagall, earning another 20 points. As for Potions, there was no need to think too much. As soon as Ian finished, Snape gave him full marks without even looking at it. Of course, the potions Ian brewed did exceed the standard. Only in History of Magic, on the night before the exam, Ian, like most people, diligently memorized notes in the common room, although he memorized Hermione's notes. As expected, he successfully got 10 zeros. Ian put his hands in his pockets and raised his chin slightly. Oh, first in the grade. Let's drink some water. Third in the grade. Not bad. Cassandra also smiled. I was second. Originally, I thought the Hogwarts exam would be very terrible, but it turned out to be quite fun. Hermione said with a smile. She got O in every subject, and when she was still reviewing, she helped Harry and Ronald so that they also passed the exams smoothly. Although the two did not get O, they also got E in every subject except for Potions. Hermione, that's for you. Potions is simply the nightmare of my life, Ronald said with a bitter face. He barely managed to avoid failing the course until the last moment. Harry had the same expression. I was thinking if I had entered Slytherin, would Snape not target me so much? No, he would target you in a different way. Ian said coldly. You should be thankful that you didn't enter Slytherin. Otherwise, Professor Snape, as your dean, would have more ways to discipline you. Harry shuddered subconsciously and talked about the Philosopher's Stone again. Ian, I still think we should go to the trapdoor to have a look. Professor Snape, whom you suspect, hasn't taken any action, so why go there? Ian glanced at Harry speechlessly. The game hasn't started yet. How can you keep thinking about playing it in advance? I heard from my father that Professor Snape was one of the followers of the mysterious man, but he later betrayed the mysterious man. Draco whispered. Now I think that maybe Professor Snape is going to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Ian looked at the platinum head with an indescribable expression. Great job, Draco. You didn't lose face. Draco, why don't you just call out that guy's name? And call him you-know-who? Harry asked in a strange way. Hermione also noticed this problem. Except for her and Ian, everyone else would call Voldemort you-know-who. After the fall of you-know-who, there were rumors that you-know-who cast a spell on his own name to accurately know the location of the person who called his name. Draco looked at Harry as if he was looking at a fool. Hermione was born a muggle and didn't know about this. You and Ian are just out of hatred and stubborn. Draco pointed at the three of them who had lived in the wizarding world since childhood. Look at the three of us. We never call him by his name directly. Hermione frowned. This rumor is really weird. Ian knew that the rumor was true, as reflected in the original plot. In the 7th grade, Harry and the other two shouted Voldemort's name stubbornly, exposing their positions several times. If it weren't for the protagonist's halo, they would have died countless times. As the six talked, they walked out of the castle, and Hagrid's hut was not far away. At this time, Hagrid was singing and combing the unicorn's hair, and he looked in a good mood. Since the unicorn was resurrected by Ian, it often came to Hagrid's hut, hoping to meet the handsome savior. Of course, Ian did not forget to care about the unicorn from time to time, and got a lot of good things from it. The tears of a unicorn can detoxify, the hair can be made into a wand, and the blood is even more precious. Every time the unicorn gave him these things, Ian would sigh and say, I didn't save him wrongly. Don't you think it's strange? Harry looked at Hagrid and suddenly said, why Hagrid wanted a dragon, and he happened to meet someone with a dragon egg, who would walk around with a dragon egg. Harry became more and more excited as he spoke, and walked towards Hagrid with a few people. It's really strange. Hermione also thought of something, and immediately responded to Harry. Let's go. Let's go ask Hagrid. Hagrid saw a few people coming and immediately greeted them with a smile. Several people responded one after another, and then sat down around Hagrid. Whaley immediately asked his question. Hagrid, Do you still remember what the person who gave you the dragon egg looked like? Hagrid recalled, and then said, I don't know who he is. He was wearing a black robe that covered his entire face. Harry immediately looked at Ian. He said there was something wrong. That man was wearing a black robe. How could a man wearing a black robe be a good person? Snape. The sharp sword is invisible, hanging the golden bell upside down. Hagrid, did that man say anything to you? Ian gently stroked the back of the little unicorn and asked. Of course. Hagrid suddenly became excited. He asked me if I had raised any special magical animals, and I talked to him a lot. Hermione immediately realized that something was wrong when she heard this. Hagrid, is he very interested in Fluffy? That's true. Hagrid scratched his head. He asked a lot of questions about Fluffy. I told him that the trick to interacting with animals is to know how to make them quiet. For example, Fluffy will fall asleep immediately as long as he is given some music. Hagrid was still talking and laughing with the six people. As soon as he said this, his expression suddenly changed. He let it slip again. The six people got the exact answer and turned around and ran towards the castle. Hagrid stared blankly at the direction where the little wizards left, shaking his head. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say it. Chapter 67, Level 1. Devil's Net. Ian ran slowly at the back. He felt helpless when he saw the 5 people in front of him running fast. Really, run slower. Why are you in such a hurry? The game won't start until tonight. Forget about the 3 guys above Harry. Why are Hermione and Cassandra also interested? Harry said as he ran. Voldemort has already known the method through Fluffy. We must find Professor McGonagall immediately. Otherwise, the Philosopher's Stone will be in danger. Things shouldn't be that bad. Draco comforted Harry, but his speed was no less than Harry's. Don't forget, there are other mechanisms left by Professor Dumbledore. Even if Voldemort knows the method through Fluffy, he may not be able to get the Philosopher's Stone smoothly. Harry thought about it, too. How could the mechanism left by Dumbledore be so easy to crack? But what if Snape and Voldemort are working together? Don't forget that Snape is also one of the professors who set up the mechanism. Hermione proposed another idea. Hermione is right. We have to hurry. Harry couldn't refute this point, so he could only speed up his pace. They had to find Professor McGonagall as quickly as possible to ensure the safety of the Philosopher's Stone. Professor McGonagall was correcting homework in the office, and suddenly there was a hurried knock on the door. Come in. Professor McGonagall's voice came from the office. Harry and the other 6 hurriedly pushed the door open. Professor McGonagall, what's wrong? Why are you 6 out of breath? Professor McGonagall looked at the 6 troublemakers in front of him strangely. Professor McGonagall, we want to see Professor Dumbledore. We have to see him now, Harry said anxiously. I'm afraid not. Professor Dumbledore is not here. Professor McGonagall adjusted his glasses and said in a good mood, he received an urgent letter from the Ministry of Magic by Owl and immediately set off for London. He left, but this matter is extremely urgent. Harry was panicked when he heard that Dumbledore was not there. Professor McGonagall frowned. What happened to make you 6 so panicked? It's not us. It's the Philosopher's Stone, Professor McGonagall. Ian said anxiously. Sure enough, after hearing about the Philosopher's Stone, Professor McGonagall's expression immediately became solemn. How do you know this? Professor McGonagall asked a series of questions. It's not important, Professor McGonagall. Harry didn't answer Professor McGonagall's question. He only cared about the safety of the Philosopher's Stone. Professor, we have reason to believe that someone tried to steal it tonight. I don't care how you guys know about the Philosopher's Stone, but it is well protected. Professor McGonagall's face suddenly changed. You students had better go back to the academy now. This is not something you little wizards should care about. Professor, the Philosopher's Stone is really in danger now. It's Snape. Harry wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Professor McGonagall. Mr. Potter, do you know what you were saying? A professor at Hogwarts can't do such a thing. But Harry wanted to say something else. Professor McGonagall waved his hand. You guys now, immediately right now, go back to Gryffindor and Slytherin. At Professor McGonagall's strong request, the 6 people had to leave the office in disgrace. Harry looked depressed. What should I do? Professor McGonagall doesn't believe.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.